Hey, gang. What's happening? Hola. Como estes? Muy beans. What's happening, gang? Dathar, what's happening? I see you out there. Houdini7, what's going on? Chuck Whiffendiffer. Grant Kendrell. Kev Rob. Ray Silver in the house. Ferrithus. What?
Well, huzzah, huzzah.
What? What's going on, Ferrithus? Good to see you back. Kev Rob with the resub, 7 months in a row, my friend. Holy heck. Nobody could possibly like me for that long. Just saying. BVC Gaming, Captain Flashart, what's happening? What's up? JDA, welcome back. Day after your birthday. It was JDA's birthday yesterday, or so we were told. So we were led to believe. You can take over the channel before I notice? No, you can't. I'm not that... No, slow is just my name. I'm not that slow in real life. Ravenous Oracle, welcome back. You missed the last few streams, Chuck. Did they update us on when the racks would be available? I just got the update today that we will have the first 20 sets of racks ready to go. That means there won't be a whole lot in the store at the beginning of next week. I have to go over there and get them. I'll probably pick them up on... I don't know if we'll be able to get them on Friday before the stream. We'll see. But if not, then it'll happen over the weekend. I've got to do all the shrink wrap. We're doing literally all of this ourselves on the racks. It's not like the brushes that just come to me already done. The racks we're having to do ourselves. So they'll be cut. I've got to go break them apart. And then get all the shrink wrap instructions, graphics, sticker in every box, that kind of stuff. Baron Simone, what's going on? Thank you for that sub with Twitch Prime. Hell yeah. Thank you, my friend. But the answer is that this weekend, all of the pre-order ones should be ready to go. Right now, I'm sitting on just shy of 20 pre-ordered racks. As long as all of those people come through and want to actually get the rack bought, then they should be all handled. And then based on, if some of them decide, hey, we don't want them right now until you get the new shelves. I've got some people that are waiting on round 2, which will have the shelves as well. This first weekend is going to be just the bottle holder racks for the Vallejo Reaper Army Painter size dropper bottles, right? Our standard dropper bottle rack. So that dropper bottle rack will be available this weekend. After I get them picked up, shrink wrapped, and ready to go, I'll reach out to everybody over the weekend via email that sent me, pre-orders, people that wanted them. They haven't paid for them yet, but the pre-order stuff. And then out of that group by Monday, I would say whoever has said, hey, so be on the lookout. If you guys are out there, if you sent me messages behind the scenes stating that you wanted one, prior to the release, then be watching your email this weekend because I will be contacting you, verifying that you want them. And I'll probably do that. I might do that tomorrow. I might send the verification emails out tomorrow just to get ahead of the game because I know we'll have the full 20 sets on Saturday. So I'll send out all the verification emails. If you receive it, make sure you answer me back. If I don't hear from you by the end of the weekend, I'm going to put all the remaining stock up on the store out of that first 20 batches. And then, of course, we'll be continuing to make, some every few days until we get caught to the point where we feel like, it's business as usual. The prototype for the shelf system will be out this weekend as well. So I'll have that information that I can post up hopefully during the Sunday show when Jen and I are playing Arena Rex. Coming on Sunday, remember, gloves off. This time it's Jen versus Jason, live, miniature gaming. And no, I'm not going to let her win. I'm not going to throw the game. She's going to have to beat me fair and square. She's got the rules. She's traveling right now. She's reading the rules. She's all psyched about it, so that should be a lot of fun. But hopefully I'll have the prototype of the shelving system then that I can show you guys how the shelves, the bleacher stands for the paint pots for like GW, the 40 mil Vallejo effects paints, the P3 effects or the P3 paints, all of that, how that fits in the rack, as well as the brush holder. So we'll have shelves, bleacher, bottle holders, and brush holder. So that's 3 things coming on the second prototyping, and those will be all we release at first. I'll be looking down the road to add more stuff to the system, but right now that's all we're really going to be doing. So hopefully we'll get all that done. And then I would think that after I get the prototype on the weekend, assuming everything goes well, maybe a few minor changes, that then by the following weekend, I'll be able to see those in production too. So if you've wanted both paint rack and shelving system and all of that to go with it, you probably are still about a week and a half out on all of that stuff being available. Right? Hashtag Team Jen. Traitor! Chuck, you did pre-order? Cool. Yeah, well then you'll see the email. Just let me know how many of those that you wanted. A lot of people said they wanted 2. I had some people say they wanted 6. I'm just going to shoot you out an email based on your original number of how many paint racks you said you wanted. If you still want them, boom, as soon as I get them, I'll send you a PayPal invoice. If you want to add other stuff from the store, let me know during that email, things like that, and we'll figure it out. I may just go ahead and dump them all up on the store kind of sneaky style and let you guys go buy them on the store if you have other stuff you want to buy. But we'll see. I don't want you to get caught out without getting one, so we'll figure it out. Assassin Red, what's happening, man? Welcome back. Spice rack for diehard gamers. Exactly, Ebb and Flow. Exactly. Ferrithus, Team Jen and Jason. Oh, I see how you do it. You're a fence sitter, my friend. You're a fence sitter. Now he'll pick Team Jen, though. So, screwed myself on that one. Bad planning, Fuse. Bad planning. Myrtle, what's going on, man? Love your face right back. Ray Silver, welcome up. Ravenous, what's happening? Dano! Otherwise known as Thorn White Wolf. What sort of price do you charge for shipping to the UK? Depends on what you are ordering, Thorin. If things like the paint rack, you get up to £5 in first class international that still has tracking. So, and we do first class and priority. If you were to ship it priority, that's literally probably a minimum of $25 no matter what you ship. Even if you bought like one paint bottle, I think going priority is a ridiculous amount of money. I just shipped first class over to England and it was like £2 and it was $21. So I don't know. For some reason, England's being super expensive. I can ship cheaper to the rest of the EU right now than I can to Britain. I don't know what that's all about. Brexit, hashtag confused. I don't know. So it just depends on where you're at. But in the UK, first class we do offer. It is a lot cheaper. I don't know. You'll have to just judge on like how much you're buying. If you've got what I have is we have a lot of viewers and customers of the store that will get like their painting group or their hobby group together and place one big order at the same time, and then I can ship up to £5 first class and they can split the difference. We've got one group that was I think 4 people ordered a bunch of paint all together, and so the shipping was like $22 or something like that, so it's an extra $5 for each of them for shipping. So that's a smart way to do it. If you're not into that situation, then it might be a little rough. The sexy brushes, yeah, they're not very heavy. They're like like with the box and everything, they're like 6 ounces, so they're not even a half a pound to ship. So that's the cheapest shipping. But you can put more in the box for the same shipping price. Is why I say always, make sure that, you get as much as you need out of the store before you pay for shipping once. And it lets you calculate all that on the site. You can add stuff in, and it does real-time shipping calculations. So. You been having problems with your airbrush, Assassin? You cleaned it out 7 times and replaced the tip, but it doesn't spray up properly. Do I have any advice? It doesn't. What do you mean properly? What's it doing? Is no paint coming out at all? You say you replaced the tip. So you took the nozzle? Yeah, Ray, the raffle is started. It is started. And thank you so much for the $5. You want an Infinity model from a raffle, Ugly? It costs a center $22 to ship to Finland. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, That's why we have to be very careful with that stuff, right? It sucks. Right now, shipping's just horrible, and it's like not the cost of fuel is high or anything. I don't understand that. Go for it. You said you put the nozzle, you had to replace it. It'll spray sometimes, or it won't do anything at all. Generally, that's the nozzle being clogged. If you replace the nozzle, are you sure you replace it with the right nozzle? Because nozzle size makes all the difference in the world. So what I tell people normally is if you have problems with the airbrush not spraying at all and you've cleaned it, so your needle is clean. Mrs. Ray with $5. Holy hell, the Ray family coming in hot. Thank you, my friends. Hope you're having a wonderful day. The nozzle itself, you have to clean out. You have to take it off the body of the brush, soak it, and then clean out the inside either with one of the small cigar cleaner sets that we've got. You can see how my small one is about done, right? These two. This one I use for the nozzle, and you can see like the hair has started to retreat back from the tip of the cleaner there. So I've just got this metal nub. That's bad, so I'm going to have to replace these and get new ones here pretty soon. But you've got to clean out the inside of the nozzle. You also take the pipe cleaners like this and run them through the body from the nozzle threads back into the body of the brush, okay, just to make sure, because paint will gum up right around the area down at the bottom of the cup, right as you see the needle. The needle goes into the front housing that takes you to the nozzle. Paint will gum up inside there, so you have to also force clean that out. So other than that, there's really nothing special or magic that you got to do. You just got to make sure that you're keeping all of that clean and soak that nozzle every chance you get. Because a lot of times people will clean the brush, know that everything's clean, needle's clean, housing's clean, tube is clean, nozzle still has paint gunked up in it. And as it restricts, it basically the paint builds up around the needle. Right here, I'm going to make a sexual gesture. The needle goes through the nozzle hole, and as more paint constricts in the nozzle hole, eventually, no matter that the needle is moving in and out, there's no area around the diameter of the needle or the circumference of the needle to actually allow air to flow and for paint to get through, because it's just so constricted in the nozzle. So there, that was your thing for the day. There you go. Where can you get those pipe cleaners? We're hopefully going to start carrying them on the site, but right now I would suggest Amazon or eBay. They're usually like anywhere from $7 to $12 for a set. These are the Grex ones that come on a little key ring and are small, made for airbrushing. I also have sets that you can buy that are much bigger, like they're longer, but this is pretty cheap. I think the Grex one is like $7.50 or $8 or something for the whole set, and you get a lot of life out of it. So. Okay, now it started. I lied. Damn it. I'm so bad with starting the raffle. I could have sworn I started it. I'm going to blame you guys, right? Is that fair? Can I just blame you guys? Hashtag blame the innocent people. Hashtag blame the innocents. Shogoth, what's going on, man? Welcome back. Henry Rollins addressed your fuel surcharge question in the William Shatner collaboration. I can't get behind that. Answered my fuel surcharge question? I didn't have a question. I was like, fuel isn't high right now, which is usually what when they drive fuel prices higher, the post office complains that that's why it costs more to ship when that's not the case. Don't get me started on postage, because like I can ship things that weigh 6 ounces, or no, I can ship a box that weighs 7 ounces, and I can have another box that has the exact same stuff in it that weighs out at like 7.2 ounces, but it rounds it to 8, and that extra, anything over 7 goes to 8. It doesn't ever round down. So 7.1 goes to 8, right? And so one box costs like $3 first class to ship, and the other one costs $6 to ship because of that extra ounce. So there's no way they can justify that 1 ounce of the same exact box size costs that much more to ship. It just doesn't make sense. So don't get me started. There's no rhyme or reason. There's bean counters out there saying that this is the way it'll work and make us money, and they still go broke and have to be bailed out. So I have no idea. Ray says he'll take the blame. Hashtag blame Ray. Ray's innocent. Free Ray. Official Ray Long. Awesome. Glad you dig him. Falcon Punch drunk. Paint always dries in the nozzle. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. No matter how much you clean, you will continue to build up a film of paint because it just sits there overnight. Even if it's just particles of paint in the cleaning solution, it'll sit there. But that's why you see me with my airbrush at the end of the night, if I've used it, I will go ahead and load it up with airbrush cleaner, right? I've got my airbrush cleaner here, and I'll take my Iwata airbrush cleaner, and I keep a cup, and I'll pour airbrush cleaner in the cup, and I'll take the nozzle out and toss it in the cup and let it soak, and then I'll spray the rest of the airbrush cleaner in the pot, right? And then just pull the trigger once with the air. You don't have a nozzle on anymore, but it'll force all of the solution down, and then you just set it aside like that overnight, right? And generally you're fine. Let it soak. Because it's not abrasive, or it won't hurt the seals or anything like that. Snot Rash, the lover of all things, I don't even know, I can't read those words. For some reason, the text isn't coming through. You're not coming in clear, Snot Rash, but welcome. Glad to have you. What am I looking at, Assassin Red? I usually don't click links. Yeah, that'll work fine. Nylon set, 2-pack, X-Passion cleaning brushes, nylon tube brushes, 20 pieces for drinking straws, glasses, keyboards, jewelry cleaning. Looks good. $9.99, sold. Buy 2. Yeah, it looks fine. That's fine. You'll never use those huge ones, so you're going to get some in that set that aren't worthwhile for you. But you want the small ones. So if you can find a smaller set for cheaper, buy it, because the big ones won't work. Ray Silver, what the hell are you shipping by the ounce? Special green? What do you mean? Everything weighs ounces. Everything weighs. The brushes are only like 6.2 ounces in a box to ship. Not even half a pound. And we sell a lot of just brushes. Like today I sent out, I don't know, 12 or 13 orders that were just empty boxes with, well, you know, a 9x6x4 box with brushes in them. You guys have started receiving them out there, so there's a lot of brushes that go out. And thank you for the follow. Cool Kids Over, what's going on? Thank you, thank you. It's a pothead joke, not a good one? No, that wasn't a good joke. Come on, people. All right, so as you know, it's Whip Wednesday, but as opposed to our normal Whip Wednesday, what we're really focused on today is how to continue on painting our Arena Rex Tribune. This is our paint-along miniature. We are doing this with people from the crowd. Yes, that's right. A lot of you guys bought the Tribune miniature from us. The guys at Arena Rex, Red Republic Games, were kind enough, Nick and his clan, to give us a dozen of these guys to sell to you over the site prior to their release at Gen Con. And so you guys have had them in your hands, and we are going through and dropping some color. Yesterday we spent a lot of time doing the flesh, so if you're interested in how to do that, I'm not going to backtrack 100%, just watch yesterday's VOD. But so far we've only really used 2 colors. We started out with tan flesh, very, very thin over our black primer coat. We haven't done any pre-highlighting. And then we went in with a little bit of barbarian flesh towards the end of the day to get highlights on there. And everybody's work that is doing this as a follow-along at home was spectacular. So really, really good to see. Now what we're going to do is start in today with adding in some color shading and some additional hues onto the skin. And the 2 colors that we're going to be focused on the most today are our Cam Dark Green and our Wasteland Soil. If you're coming in late, if you want to try these kinds of flesh workups on your own, then you can hear Bella in the background yelling at somebody. I think we have a delivery. Then you can look at the color, the entire color scheme that we're using on this model at slowfusegaming.com under the miniatures section of the store. You'll see that the Tribune is still up there, even though there's no longer any of them in stock. But if you go to the product page and look at the description, it lists out all of the paints that we're using for this one. But if you have any questions during the stream, just ask me. I've got all the paints listed here. And I've got the store page open so I can remind myself what the hell I told you guys we were using. Your name is Slow Fuse and you paint super thin. No, your name is not Slow Fuse. Your name is Mike C. Mike C. Have you saved your chest yet, Mike C? I feel like he needs to shave his chest. He's got that uncomfortable in-between chest hair. Don't ask how I know. If you didn't watch Sunday's show, then you missed it. I can't explain it to you. Smoking jacket, bare chest. Amazing, we're still allowed on Twitch. That kind of thing. That's what happened on Sunday. My brush spinning not on point today. Not on point. All right, so let's get started. Zip in here. Not too close, otherwise I'll be off screen the whole time. Let's start with the Cam Dark Green. All right, so again, let's do a refresher for anybody that wasn't here yesterday or is new to the channel. Show you what I mean when I say I paint very thin. We are starting off, the Cam Dark Green is a model air color, so it's already natively thinner than your normal paints. All right, Vallejo goes ahead and in the solution thins it out quite a bit. Right, so this paint will, run all over the place. It's a lot drippier than any normal acrylics. But still, what we want to do is load our brush up. I go into my water jar and I load it completely with water. Okay, so you can see there's a huge drop of water in these bristles right here. So as I go and start painting on my finger, you can see that I've got tons and tons of water juiced in there. So that's exactly what I want to bring over here to the paint. But you'll notice that I probably only have to bring one time. And I just grab a tail call it a tail, right out of the side of the paint here, right? So I'm just going at the edge of the paint, touching it briefly, and then pulling it out and mixing it with all my water, right? And remember that what we're looking for is when I move my brush side to side, I get a nice translucent paint over here on the side, and then and then where I stop, I get my spot of paint, right? Which stays kind of coherent. It doesn't bleed out too quick. You don't want this paint to splotch and bleed back across here. Otherwise, you're too thin, right? So you just want to bring in paint till you get to that point. All right, so we'll add a little bit of water, grab a little bit of paint, move it around until as I go across, my dot of paint stays pretty solid. Move it back across, just translucence and a solid dot of paint. Notice how it's not saturating back out into the water around it very fast. Perfect paint. That's what we're looking for. That's how we'll be painting all day long. All right, now, this green, you're like, why? I don't want to paint green on skin. Sure you do. Come on, it's fun for everybody. We're going to start in the shadows. All right, so these spots, let me get my glasses. It's going to be glasses time right out of the gates today. I'm getting addicted to these glasses. That's my first time ever wearing glasses, but they work really well. All right, so we're going to take this green, and I'm going to start lining it in right underneath this bicep in that shadow area. Just like that. Again, really crucial that your paint is super thin here so that you do not start just painting dark green lines, right? We are not looking for too much pigment. Look at how thin that is as it's going on my thumb there, right? More water than anything. Right, same thing, I want to get this shadow area right here on the bottom of the shoulder as it creeps into his underarm. Don't layer it up too much. We don't want too much green. We're not trying to make him alien. We're just trying to give some color to it. All right, I'm going to work underneath here into the armpit again. More green. Now I'll do underneath the arm as well. The shadow area right up underneath like that. Okay. Keep moving around. Make sure that I continue to load up color into the underarm area. Getting some of that paint off of there, underside of the shoulder muscle here. Notice how I'm not painting it on the area underneath very much. I'm just going for that dip of shadow on the muscle. Okay, so I'm just bringing it lightly right on the bottom side of the muscle. Use my finger to smudge it. Same thing right here on the tricep. That dark line that we created yesterday, smudge it. You don't want to make it look like you're actually painting lines, so you're just going very, very thin, glazing it into that shadow area under the bicep now. Back towards the band on the arm there. Smudge it a little with your finger. Right. Notice how I'm not seeing a lot of green there, right? A little bit in the darkest areas, but not a ton. And that's good. That's exactly what you're looking for. You want to layer it up. Right, so we'll come back in, follow that area right along the edge of the bicep down low. Keep knocking these bottles. I have all these empty bottles because I was making Slow Fuse Special White today. Orders coming in like crazy. Thank you guys so much for all the support on the brushes and the paints. You guys are killing it. Same thing, anywhere where we have the darker tan flesh showing through our workup from yesterday, I'll just keep bringing in a little bit of green on that, smudging it with my finger. The smudging just kind of blends it in. Make sure you don't get too much built up. It's just a good kind of definitive way to make sure you're not turning this skin too green. All right, but now notice how I've darkened up that underarm really well. Got some highlight out here. A good layer built up underneath. Continue on this underside of the arm. Forearm. Then we'll go and get the underside of the hand a little bit. Now this green, what it does is it represents the subdermal colors of the veins in the skin. So we're only really attacking the shadows because of that. Right? We don't, on the brightest spots, we're going to have more pink showing. and we don't want to put too much. Right? Just enough to give the shadows a little bit of tinge of green. You can see how the model kind of picks it up. Not quite like a wash, but similarly. Yeah, let's get on this side of the wrist. Coming down. Shadow part of that skin. Notice how I'm getting very, very little pigment there. You can't really tell that I'm putting much paint on the model at all, but as I get more layer built up, the more color starts to show. Right? And you'll start to see just a little bit of green starting to buckle in there right at the elbow. Right? You see a little bit at the bottom of the bicep. Right? So we're starting to get those colors to show up. Now just be really, really light with it. Let's move on to the neck now. Again, just up here by the trim of the helmet more, and then down in the dark spots of the muscles. Right around the Adam's apple. Right up in the shadowing underneath that helm. And bring it down a little bit because we remember how we talked about the helmet and his face, his chin, are going to shadow more of this area than not. So we can go ahead and layer up a little bit over even our light colors there on the Adam's apple. And notice how it kind of darkens that up for us. Gives us that cool kind of subdermal feel, even though this green sits on top. Right? The way it sits in the shadows gives you the translucent feel of skin. And we'll do all of our other highlights on top of this that'll sink it back down, which is why we're doing it now. All right, we haven't used our brightest skin tone yet. We're not done with all of the normal flesh tones, right? We want to go in about, I usually do this at the middle stage. What I would say is probably the middle of my color work up on flesh, right? So we did our tan flesh shade. We did our medium tone in the barbarian flesh. Right? And before we go to skin highlights, we come in and we start doing any custom hues or, any of these types of effects that you want to put on there. Right? Start layering in our greens, any blues or purples that you're going to use, like our wasteland soil will come next. Right? So now's the time, because all of your lighter skin tones will go back over this, as well as any shadow correction you need to do, any other colors that you feel like you want to put on. You might go back with like a dark mahogany or something blended in with your flesh tone to give you some shadows if you feel like you overdid your highlights in the steps from yesterday. So, but first, before you do any correcting, get these hues added in. Get a little bit of green, all that, all right? So I'm happy with the throat area there. Arm, a little bit of green on it. Now, we're not trying to paint him like Nurgle. He's not dead. He's a living guy, so we don't want to go too much. And you're going to see more on the model than you will at the end right now, so don't be afraid. You're going to go in and layer up these shadows. But like I said, we're going to come back after it with some other skin tone, so don't be too afraid to drop in quite a bit of the green in the shadows and such. We can always fix it if you go too much, like we talked about yesterday. Painting thin allows you a lot of freedom. Be brave. Again, just kind of pushing the green up into the shadow. Notice how my brush stroke goes from where the lighter skin pigmentation is towards the shadow so that my green builds up there. Pushing it up underneath that shoulder pad. Layering it through the shadow on the inside of the arm as it goes towards the body. Be a little bit more liberal with it. Smudge it with your finger. If you get an area like that and you feel like you can't get your finger in there, I'm always a fan of keeping Q-tips around, right? So you can always keep a Q-tip and you can go in and maybe smudge your lines like that as well, right? So that notice how, now I get that little bit of green build up on the inside shadow there. You can see it in the underarm here. You can see it on the inside shadow of the arm there, right? Always just working super, super thin. A little bit on the elbow, just in the deep spots there. I've got little muscle striations on the back that I can detail. Notice how you've got that real faint muscle line right there. It's barely in the sculpt, but you can pick it out by just dropping a little hint of this green in there. It'll add to the shadows. Right? Again, smudge it so it doesn't look like you just painted a line, but notice how we get some muscle definition out of that without having to try real hard. And it's got the color, the hue of that kind of subdermal coloring, because, you know, we talk about it all the time. If I zoom back out, and forgive me, right, because I'm the tattooed guy, so, you know, you've got all these other colors. I got bright green all over me, but don't paint like that. All right, but notice how we've got this kind of faded green here, where you've got this vein that runs on the inside of the fingers, and there's one for each finger, right, as it comes through. So you have like these kind of green hues that shadow along the side of my hand. It's partly due to the hair on the side of my hand. It's partly due to the subdermal content underneath, veins, the capillaries close to the skin, blood vessels up top give us this kind of pinkish tone, tops of the knuckles. But notice how you've also got like a little bit of green feathered in there. Right, so that's what we're doing without being specific. On a model of this size, you're not trying to say, okay, let's paint the vein right along the side of his finger. No, you just put a little green in the shadow between the fingers, fine. You don't have to paint veins, right? As a matter of fact, if you start painting veins at this scale, you tend to get a very sickly look. It'll look like zombies, right? Where the skin has gone too thin, and you start seeing the veining coming out. And so there's sickness there, there's death, you know, and disgust, nurgle going on. So if that's what you're looking for, then by all means be more specific with your paint placement, paint veiny kind of things on there, and you'll get that more doom gloom kind of look out of it. Since that's not what we're looking for, he's alive. We're just looking to add a little bit of filter of green on these muscles. We don't want to paint any specific lines anywhere if we can avoid it. See a spot right here coming out of the elbow, inner elbow here into this muscle group coming up the forearm that I want to get. The shadow's a little dark there, so I'm probably going to wind up going back and adding a little flesh tone in there, because right at that bend it's still a little dark. And so I put a little green in there. I'm probably going to wind up attacking that with a little bit more of our tanned flesh in a little while. For now, this works. A little green in there as well. Didn't do the top side of his wrist coming back out of the wrist guard, so we'll drop a little bit of green in there as well, just as it comes up top there, like so. Again, to try to pick out some of this muscle, because the green is just ever so slightly shading the flesh tone. It's dark enough, right, but it's not like painting lines on it, like I said. Right? You get good definition starting to show up, good color. Drop a little bit in here on this little shadow spot on the top of the shoulder. I don't want too much in the bright spots of the model, though. Right? So the top of the shoulder is going to be one of the brighter spots. I don't want to put too much there. I want to keep it more into the shadows. Between the fingers, like I was saying. Oh. Right? And notice how it's bringing some life to the skin. Even though we're not even anywhere near close to being done, it does a lot more for the realism of skin tone than just painting with a triad of skin tones. You know, just going in with, you know, browns and pinkish flesh tones will not get you the full way towards, you know, a good realistic skin workup. You've got to add some other colors in there too, because our skin is made up of tons of colors: pinks, blues, reds, greens. So play with it until you find a concoction that you like. And I'm liking that arm. That side looks pretty good. Neck is looking good. Let's move on to the legs. Actually, we need to get a little bit on the inside of this bicep over on the right, or left arm. Our right, his left. All right, so I want to come in here as the bicep kind of races up into the underarm. I want to make sure we get a good shadow laid in on that side. Like so. Kelly Time, what's going on, man? Robo Whale, why no pre-shade on this one? Because we're doing a paint along, it's difficult for me to require people to have a pre-shading done. I feel like a lot of people might be put off on participating if they don't own an airbrush. The first couple of paint alongs that we'll be doing will be all brush, no airbrush. I mean, I do my primer with airbrush, but other than that, you know, I'm not using any airbrush. I'm not pre-highlighting. You can pre-highlight with a brush. I've shown you that on stream. It just takes a long time. So with the limited amount of time that I have to work with everybody as a paint along here, it's just easier, and it's a really, really good way to teach you how to start thinking about value when you don't have the benefit of a pre-highlight. Even though you may pre-highlight all of your models, going through the process of painting one without pre-highlight reinforces for you that kind of intelligence that you bring to the table every time you paint a model in knowing where to put highlights. Building it up in your head and watching and thinking in terms of how would light fall on this. Then when you're doing your pre-highlight, it gives you the ability to verify, right? You put your pre-highlight on and you're like, okay, yeah, that's perfect. I need a little bit more down here, a little bit more down here. I mean, you see me do that all the time. And the only way that you can really get in your head how and why that works is to practice all sorts of methods of applying value onto a model. So this is just another way, you know, when you don't. But because I can't assure that everybody that wants to do the paint along has all of those tools, you know, I don't want to go through and force people into those situations. Nothing wrong with chest hair. As a hairy man, it sounds like envy on my part. No, I'm just saying, Thorin, his chest hair is in that awkward zone of it ain't full and it ain't sparse. Like mine, I have like 5. I ain't gonna lie. I think I have like maybe 5 chest hairs down here. See, well, you can't tell because again, I'm just screwed with showing you guys anything because I got a freaking tattoo on my chest. So anyway, I have like 5 chest hairs. He's got like the in-between, right? He's in that non-committal stage of chest hair. I'm in the screw it, I just don't have chest hair. You know, live with it, dude. You're just not manly. That's where I'm at. Naked Puzzle Basement's in that I wish I was manly and I'm trying really hard, but it's kind of like you can't tell if he's faking it stage. Flora and fauna, Naked Puzzle Basement. He has chest moss. Yeah, exactly. Highly valued by the custom basing community. It's good on your models. Echo Base Artisans, what's happening, man? Good to see you. Grins, what's going on, man? I'm having a great day. How about you guys? It is Mitvok. Ghosted Wolf, hey, what's happening? You tuck? I don't even want to hear about that. That's not a conversation for public. No problem, RoboWhale. Yeah, because you know I'm going to pre-highlight 99.9% of the time. But again, like a lot of times I do one-on-one tutorials behind the scenes. You know, we do that over on the store. You can buy an hour or 2 hours with me set aside to do private lessons. And a lot of times people, you know, I'll ask before the lesson, what tools do you have? What are you comfortable using? And some people say, well, I just got my airbrush. I'm not 100% comfortable with it other than priming. And I'm like, fine, let's just use it for priming and then we'll use brush for these other things and we'll teach that. And I feel like there's a good method for everybody to learn these things and none of it's wasted. Like if you start later on using your airbrush to do pre-highlights, that's great. If you have all of the pre-learning built in on why highlights go where they go, how to do it with brush, then you're just better prepared down the road to always have it be comfortable and always, you know, achieve a really good amount of success with your techniques. So I love that we can paint both with and without and this and that and, you know, underpainting, pre-highlighting, whatever you want to call it. You know, do it sometimes. You don't have to do it all the time. And you can get very good results either way. Thorin's a lumberjack from a 70s porn movie. So we both have no hair. Exactly. Exactly. We're both hairless apes compared to you. Dude, there was a guy in front of me at the fast food line today. I went and got a tea from Jack in the Box after going to the post and taking all the orders out. There's a dude in the line at the post office, or at the fast food joint, you know, before me. And I guess his windows were stuck. He had to open the door. So he opens the door, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's not human. That guy's wrists, the guy's wrists, forearms, and hands were like my legs. Like when that hand opened the door, it was literally like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde moment for me. I was like, oh Jesus, like this is a guy like from comic books or something. He had these monster hands. I mean, he's a car length in front of me, and I was like, what the? His arm reached out to grab the bag of food from the lady, and you know, I mean, my arm is tiny. My wrists, I can touch my fingers around my wrists, right? I got tiny wrists here. This dude was like this. He had like ham hocks as wrists, and his hands were like 4 of my hands, except only 5 fingers. The dude was huge. Dude, I wanted to open the door and be like, step out of your car. I gotta see this for real. Dude was huge and just covered with hair, like his tops of his knuckles, the whole 9. I think it was Bigfoot. I'm not gonna lie. I think I saw Bigfoot today. I'm gonna call the papers and tell them that's what happened. so that I can get my 3 seconds of fame on the news. That's what we're doing. Ray, any chance for that non-metallic metal card for the sword? Yeah, let's get done with the greens, and then I'll do it. Remind me again, but I want to get through the greens so we don't have a ton of this on the palette. So let's keep painting here. Again, we're using Cam Dark Green as a shade for our skin. I'm going to start pushing into the hand here. Notice how we left our little shadow line along the wrist, the bottom of the wrist guard here, going into the top of the hand initially. So that's where I want to start. I want to just go and drop a little bit of that green, kind of push it from the top of the hand up into that line formed by the hand guard like that. All right. There's a line on the model, so I'm wondering, oh, that's a strap. So see how there's a line right there? That just showed up as I was doing this kind of glaze, and so it got dark right along there. So there's a leather strap. So I'm going to come back in and push a little bit more green focused on edging that leather strap, because where I was going with it is not actually part of the hand. Right? See that? There's a leather strap right there. Okay? So instead, push the green into the leather strap, because that'll be brown. So that's a good find. Glad I noticed that. Come around the side where the strap kind of goes away. And then I want to get a little bit more in between the fingers. So back to the palette for some more paint. Wipe most of it off. Notice how here what I've done is I've gotten a good blade on my brush. I basically come over on my thumb and wipe it flat so that now I've got a chisel tip. Right? Flat on and wide on one side, narrow and needle sharp on the other. That way I can turn it sideways and I can just line right between those fingers. A little bit of green built up. Making sure I keep it off of the top of the bright skin, like that. Push a little bit up along these leather bands. You can see the leather bands more pronounced here on the side as they go in between the forefinger and the thumb. A little green in there on the forefinger and thumb. And then we'll start working on the thighs. Same thing here, starting with these shadowed areas up close to the clothing line and just pushing some green into this dip between the muscles there. Smudging it with my fingers as I go. Okay. So. Keep running it all the way along, same way. Just kind of using the brush, using the side of the tip, if you will, and just kind of pushing paint up into that ledge formed right between the skin and the robe. Right? So just pushing back, front to back, so that green loads up right along the edge of that robe. And I just get a little bit of tint out on the knee. Not too much. And again, you may not even really be able to see a whole lot of green. Sometimes it takes being able to hold it just with the angle of light correctly before you can really see the green. That's the way you want it. Right? I'm always telling you guys, as you're painting like I do, very thin, you don't really, rarely is there a case where you're going to be like, all right, I want to see this color immediately as I touch the model with the brush. Most times you want it to be, you know, I can't tell other than the fact that the model's wet that I even did anything right there. That's what puts you in control. Right? You're just building up small, very thin layers so that you can control exactly how much color content you get at any given time on the model. Right? I'm liking that. Put green in there. The other thigh. This one we're going to want more because this whole inside of the thigh, knee, calf is all in shadow from the clothing and the angle of the model. So I'm just going to kind of be more liberal as I go through that inside area and drape that green all down there. Tops of muscles in between, and then I'll come back and layer in more, you know, where I know I've got shadows, right down below that thigh muscle, in between where the muscle groups are, right at the underneath of the knee, stuff like that. All right, so now I get a unique shadow color up underneath there that plays a lot better than just the skin tone. Back with a little bit more darkness over on that side. Notice how I come in there and I kind of create a wedge shape, so it creates the shadow that would fall from the drape of the cloth of the robe there, just by coming in and giving it a little bit more darkness right across the thigh there. Same thing over here. Just kind of layer up a little bit more up high. I'm really driving home the shadow of the cloth up above. So, where our only bright spot that really sits out is this tip of the thigh muscle and top of the knee and the dimple of the knee that runs off to the side there. Inside of the calf. So, this other calf over here, just the bottom part of the right calf, because remember we highlighted the top of the calf muscle over here, so we just kind of want to shade the bottom of the calf with a little bit of green, not too much. And same as you come down towards the ankle, you can put a little bit. Leave the heel alone, just maybe a little bit of green that pushes into the sandal straps. And then not too much on the toes. Maybe right at the front of the sandal strap there, but not too much. Usually in the feet, there's more reds than greens, because that's where all the weight, obviously, of your body is being supported. So it's going to be flattened out more capillary action at the surface of the skin. So more pinks, more reds, as that blood is kind of pushed through the weight of the body. Again, on the outside here where we've got more highlight, let's just get that green kind of down low underneath the calf muscle. Thing over here. Again, I'm pushing paint into those straps wherever possible. I'm barely picking up any color here. Back of the knee, and then again on this side, kind of back of the thigh up into the clothing. Right? Just running it right up top, and then I'll push paint along that shadow at the top of the thigh. Not too thick. Barely getting any pigment on there at all. A little bit on the front, come down a little bit further. Bingo. All right. So it not only gives us a little bit of shadow, but adds a little bit of cool color in there. We get the back of this ankle here, where we've got it in shadow, making sure we don't lose that nice highlight that we've got running right down the Achilles. Right? So you've got that really cool light skin tone going top to bottom from underneath the calf muscle right down the Achilles to his heel. Just go to the shadow side of that with a little bit of green. Right? We really start to get a nice variation in skin tone there. And it's that easy. And we're pretty much done with the green now. You might, you know, like everything else, we might have to come back and play with it a little bit after we do the wasteland soil, but for now, I'm happy with that. And set that aside, take a break real quick. Ray was asking me to go over some non-metallic metal. We're going to be doing a lot of non-metallic metal on this guy. And I know that's got some people worried because they're like, I've never done this before. Ray was asking about doing swords, and we have a very simple method for doing swords and blades that have a bevel to them. Ray and I did a private lesson tutorial where we painted up the kind of electro-metallic look sheen on this this Umbra Legat from, or Umbra Samaritan, I forget what this guy is, from Infinity, Onyx Contact Force Infinity. And so we kind of worked on, you know, how to go about doing transitions when you're doing them in color. It's no different if you want to do it as like shining steel, or if you want to do it as some weird plasma weapon like what I've done here. Your main goal is to go for very bright bursts of contrast as you're painting anything that has a shine or a weird glow to it, and then maintaining that contrast, in a coherent manner across the model. So in the case here, I just kind of drew a sword. I think we drew this for Shoshi, from Shoshi's Minis when she was asking. And, so it allows you to kind of get a feel for a very simple checkerboard style pattern, or modulated highlight, I call this, where you basically are going from dark to light to dark to light to dark to light, right? And you want to just keep rotating through your bright and dark spots. And how bright you go in your highlight shine area versus how dark you go in your reflection area will make your sword either, super shiny or dull metallic. So if you wanted this to be some real dark iron, well-used, not polished, rough-hewn sword, then you just would never go to white. You would go to like light grays, and you would make your dark cut in further towards your highlight. So here, the way I've got it drawn would be a very shiny sword, because we're going to a pure white in the middle on the highlight area, and then that white is taking a long time to dip into the dark reflective areas on the metal, right? So you would go from white to light gray to mid-tone gray to dark gray to black, perhaps, right? And so your dark areas retreat away from the saturation of shine, and that's what creates that feeling of more shiny metal. The further I bring the reflective shadows in, right, and the more I restrict the white, the duller this is going to look. Even if it's just still super white and a bright point right here, and then it goes out to light gray, medium gray, dark gray, black very quickly, it's still going to make the whole sword look more dull, and you're just going to have a pinpoint shine, right? Same thing with the underneath. You want to set this very dark reflective area right up next to the white here, and then however far you take to drag your dark to your light spot is going to set up the shine, right? Now on the bottom, you're trying to, it's difficult to kind of explain, but on the bottom you want, like up here, if it was super shiny like we've drawn it, you want your white area to be large and then go very subtly into black over a broader area. Same on the bottom, except reverse your thinking. You want your black area to be large and to match the white so that you create that contrast along the entire breadth of your shine. You get this very dark colored broad, and then that goes very, very narrow, or very, very smoothly into bright white, and your bright white on the bottom is very limited, right? If you pull this brightness in really far and just have a very small spot of reflection, again, it can make it look dull, and if you do it on this side, it doesn't make it look like metal, right? It makes it look really weird because you've got way more white than you would ever have, because these saturation points underneath, a saturation on top makes no sense. Right? The way light hits a beveled edge, you're going to get a saturation point on one of the faces, pick it, where you want it to be brightest, light coming in from, like we have it, light coming in from the top here. So our brightest reflection, shine saturation is going to be on the top of the blade. And then pick that. And then under here, you want much less brightness. And then, of course, you're going to edge this entire thing. One thing that I don't think I have drawn here, right, is that you're going to edge across the entire top of the model. Right, and then a little bit on the bottom as well. And with your highlight edge, you're going to start with like a mid-tone gray and just edge the entire sword with a mid-tone gray. And then next come in with a light gray and like edge from, say, here to here on the top, and say like, here to here on the bottom with a mid-tone gray in these two sections. And then you're going to come in with the white and draw it in even narrower, right, with a white highlight, and edge just white right in over the shine, retreating a little bit out of the shine into the mid-tone grays. And that bright edge along the entire sword drags home the metallic look too, because anywhere where you have a right angle or a pointed edge, you're going to get a reflective surface no matter what the other shadows or shades are doing on it. So always make sure you do that. It's not really drawn on here, but you figure that out. All right. So there you go. Very simple workup for metallics, and we'll do that on some of these models here in the near future. This guy, the metallic is going to be a lot different because it's all on his armor. So it's not flat beveled shapes like swords. We've got, you know, curves and radiuses and breastplates and musculature and a face that's metallic. So all sorts of neat areas to be working up reflective surfaces and shine and doing cool stuff. So we'll be playing a lot with metallic shine on here. Built out of tree trunks. Yeah, Grins, I think this guy was. His name was Francis, and he's a mama's boy. Black Wolf, that was you? Holy hell. You drive a Mitsubishi something or other SUV? Because I think that's what it was. Dirthu, what's happening? Welcome. Genuine Vision, welcome back, my friend. What's going on? Scientologist, do you just flip the pattern for the other side or keep it the same? Yeah. Oh, on the sword like this when you're doing it, good question. Yeah, you would basically just determine how your highlight is going. Again, it's based on light. So if you had, you know, a bright light on one side and you could do the other side in more of a shadow if the way the model was holding it, or you could just flip it and do it exactly like this mirrored. Keep the top bright, bottom dark is the easiest way. As you start getting into more and more telling of a story based on like OSL, or, you know, like you've got a bright light hitting the front of the sword, then the back of the sword entirely would be duller. So you would just do this same thing, but instead of where I say white, you might go to medium gray in here and never really take it up to white if you wanted the back of the sword to look a little bit more shadowed. Same principles, darker on the edges, smooth fade, but you can just reduce your white to a light gray or medium gray in here, and it'll make the entire back look a little duller. Make sense? The big feats. I did see big feats today, Black Wolf. No problem, Ray. I told you I would. The impending doom. Talking a man being very built, but yet the mountain in Game of Thrones, that's his actual size. That guy's huge, dude. That dude is literally huge. And this guy was like that, except that I would think that the mountain would be one of those guys that when he sits in a car, they have to balance it with plates on the other side so that he doesn't wear the shocks out on one side. That's how big that guy is. Like this guy in the truck, no matter how big he looked, the truck wasn't like sitting weird. I remember when I was in college, I worked for a place. I did contract work for a place doing acoustic work for them. And they also did work. It was like a home/car audio place. And they did these car audio systems. And one guy that came in was so big that he had like I want to say it was like a Ford Explorer Excursion, you know, one of those big SUV things back in the day. And one side had that. It had, I think, 200 or 300 pounds of steel plate in the passenger side of the car to offset his weight when he sat on the driver's side. And his driver's side seat was custom and the whole nine. The dude was just a big dude, like enormously big. But he kept wearing out the steering arm and all of the suspension on the driver's side because he was so big that the truck rode funky and so it couldn't stay in alignment and all that. So they counterbalanced his car. How ridiculous is that? That dude was huge. Black Wolf, you're Bigfoot? I don't think that's true. I just don't think that's true. If you are, we need to talk, because we shouldn't be here teaching people how to paint if we have Bigfoot amongst us. I'm just saying. We should be finding other cool things to be doing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We could be making money. The Mountain has a clause in his contract that says he needs to eat every 2 hours. The guy won World's Strongest Man 3 years ago. The amount of roids he is on makes a cattle farmer look like an underachiever. You know, a big lady who needed custom shocks. When she got out of her car, it would literally lift up like 3 inches. Yeah, same thing with this guy. They had custom shocks on the truck and counterbalance weights and the whole nine. He was huge. Huge. He was 400 pounds if he was a pound. Like legit huge dude. You've been working on that model with all the skin as a hard time? Which model, Assassin? The female model that you've been painting? All right, next color. Wasteland Soil. All right. Yeah. Wasteland Soil. Where is my clock? Why do I not see my clock? There it is. I'm like, why can't I see the clock on the computer? What's going on here? All right, so Wasteland Soil literally has become one of my favorite colors. I have a bunch of go-to colors. I find myself using Wasteland Soil all the freaking time. If you can see here, another model that we're doing with Arena Rex, this one did have a pre-highlight on it, but if you can see real quick, notice how our green in the shadows, obviously a lot more skin on him to show than on our Tribune, but same effect. Right? So we've gone in, we did the flesh darker on him, so we didn't go as bright. The Barbarian is our highlight, as opposed to, you know, over here we're working things a little bit brighter, more like a true Caucasian flesh or an olivey skin tone here, as opposed to a more, you know, in the desert forever skin tone over here. But what you can tell is you can see more of the green laid in the shadows, right? As I look around, you can catch that feel of green where the light hits it. But then also notice where we've got like the thin, the blood vessels towards the top of the skin, like in the lower back. Notice how we've got a little bit of pinkishness coming in. Pinkishness down the middle of the spine indentation here, right? Up at the top of the neck, here on the shoulders, right? Where you've got just a little bit of pink filtering through there, right? That's not happening except for Wasteland Soil. That's the color, right?
Why don't you donate $5 to the cause?
Robert Norton with 25 bucks. Holy hell, my friend. Let's get some hype in the chat, some hearts, some rainbow hype. Thank you, my friend.
$25 donation received from Robert Norton.
Huge
Hype
input
train
right there,
shiz.
pushing us towards a giveaway. So Wasteland Soil has become literally one of my favorite colors because it allows us to get a very cool amount of pink, blood red, blue vein, all of that interaction with one color. Right? So with a little bit of the green on there and then bringing in a little bit of pink, we get a lot of natural skin tone very, very easily, right? Two colors, not worried about it too much. I'm going to show you where to put it. Awesome stuff. So again, you know, back of the knees here, a little bit of pink, right? Just a little bit of red so you can see, just like your skin, right? Notice how we've got that color. That's Wasteland Soil glazed over your skin. Legit, same thing, right? That pink, you don't want to fight it with pink and try to figure it out. Right? You want to bring it in with a lot of different tones. Right here, you see, like, look at the top of my skin. You see a little halo of green on the top of my skin here. Right? Even though when you look at it like this, it's not green, but look at it like this. The shadowing, the hair, the fact that the dermal layer is not opaque, it's transparent, or translucent, not transparent, but translucent. Right? And so you get that little haze of green. So all of these colors that we're using are natural on skin. It's just finding a way in miniature to make them speak the way they do in real life, right? Without it looking like you paint green racing stripes on people, right? So what we're gonna do here is come back with our Wasteland Soil, shake it up good. The Army Painter paints are notorious for giving you a little bit of medium out of them. So shake that bitch up. You did a comparison of the Vallejo Violet Red and the Army Painter Wasteland Soil, and the Vallejo is slightly brighter. Yeah, Grins, it is just a little bit brighter. The Wasteland Soil is a very dull color. And you know, dull just as in it doesn't have a whole lot of you know, flash to it, which I really, really like about it, right? I always like painting with colors. That's why I like Vallejo Air so much. The colors, while, you know, going into realms like with our light brown that can be a bright tan, are still dull to some extent. They're more weathered. They're more meant for like World War II, you know, kind of been in combat a long time. And then you can find ways to work them up brighter for brighter contrast rather than starting with bright colors and then figuring out how to dull them down, right? To me, it's easier to work from dark to bright because it puts you in control of how and where you want the brightness, as opposed to dumping a lot of brightness on the model first and then trying to figure out how to get the shadows naturally back on it, how to dull that stuff down. Can be they're both viable, right? Just depends on what your brain wraps its kind of understanding around better. And understand, me painting from dark to light, we brought this up in one of our tutorials the other day, is that me painting from dark to light is not just a formulative thing. That's what's going to happen, because as a tattoo artist, you can't work from dark to light the same way that you do in paint that I'm doing here. You kind of have to go light to dark because light inks don't cover dark inks on tattoos very well at all. There's some times where you can really dig into the skin and get it to work, but you ride a fine line. You don't really want to be doing that to people's skin because everybody's skin's a little different. So without going too much into tattooing, it's a thing where you have to think in terms of, well, unlike paint, solid pigments on canvas or on models where I can paint a thick pigment, bright color over a dark one and completely, erase the dark color, doesn't work like that with inks. You're working with transparent inks when you tattoo, or translucent, right? Even though they say they're opaque, right? They're not going to be. You're not going to put white ink in the skin and have it cover black ink so that you can erase a mistake you did with your outline. It's just not going to happen. Right? So you get used to working one way, and then you come and you start painting in miniature, and it's like completely different for me. So they're two ends of the spectrum, and both are viable, and knowing both is really good so that you can see where you want to get and how to get there. You may run into something on a model where you're like, this would really help if I started bright first. Fine. Just have that understanding as you're doing it as to why, what benefit it gives you, and work from there. Doing bright fire, it doesn't need any shadow, so why work from dark to light? When we were doing the Nina, the Breath of Fire model the other day, that was it. I started from bright to dark on that because it's fire. There's no shadow in fire. So certain aspects don't call you to work from shadow to brightness because there is no shadow. In an OSL situation, there's from the light source, there is no shadow. The shadow is cast on the rest of the model, but when you're painting the light source, you got to go from, bright to brighter almost. So you got to know both sides of the spectrum. All the photos of you as Bigfoot, are you streaking out in the woods, Black Wolf? Dude, we need to take this show on the road, I'm telling you. Genuine, thank you, my friend. Afflicted, what's happening, man? Good to see you. Big Bob, that should bump you to silver. That was you, Big Bob? Holy bub. Hang on, let me look. Let me look. Silver? Well, okay, if that was you, then I need to find you on here. Hang on. Hold, please. Big Bob. Holy hell. Okay, I got to type your name in. I'm never going to find you in this list. I didn't realize we had so many bronze. Big Bobzilla, that did, as a matter of fact. I'm going to add 25 points so I can keep up with it. And move you to silver. There you go, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. I had no idea that was you. Sneaking in with real names. Not fair. Not fair. Hairdo, does it show you resubbed? You just did it but didn't get a new notification? Hang on, let me see. Let me see while I'm over here looking at it. Latest subs. No, Baron Zabodi is the only one today that I'm seeing. But it doesn't show me resubs. Hang on. I don't think it's showing me resubs, so I gotta find you in the user database here. Hold. Sub on 22 August. Yes, it did, and it gave you your slow bucks. It resubbed you here for 11 months in a row. Thank you, my friend. I don't know why we didn't see a notification, though. That sucks. Well, thank you. Hairdo the man. Mucho apreciado. You upgraded to a higher sub donation? Oh, Hairdo, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just Streamlabs taking a little while to show it through. But thank you. Thank you for hanging tight with us for that long. Absolutely awesome. Can't resub for 11 days. Say what? Did I say 11 days? 11 months? 11 years? 11 years of resubbing? All right. Again, starting in with Wasteland Soil to get that pink on the flesh. I'm still using my Bombwick #1. For all the painting that we've done so far, I'm just using the #1. Right? These are the latest edition. I guess our first edition of Bombwicks. And I am absolutely loving them. They're holding up great. I'm glad that we made the changes that the community kind of pushed me on for the handle and the sizing numerics. I think it's working really, really well. All right, so now what we want to do is I want to kind of straddle these areas where we did the green shading. All right, by straddle, I mean I don't want to go right over them, but I want to start bringing this pink right at the edge of them and straddle that flesh. Right along the shade. So right above the green, and it'll dip into the green a little bit, and that's fine. Like right here. Right, get that pink working on the top of the muscle. Same on the shoulder here. Right along the top of the green. Push it down into the green a little bit. Let it straddle right there between the green and the flesh tones. See how that's happening? Same thing everywhere. Well, not everywhere. Don't get ahead of yourself. Right? But in the spots that it makes sense. Again, we're going to stay away from clown suit stuff, but on these muscle groups here, mainly like right at the bigger groups. Push a little pink right on that forearm piece. Right? If you do pink everywhere, you can tend to make the skin look a little raw. Okay, so you don't want to push it too far. Too much pink, sunburn, raw flesh. I mean, you can make it useful for certain stories you're trying to tell, but in our case, we just want skin coloring, so we're not going to push it too far. All right, want a little bit as it goes in here. Basically, I'm looking for areas right before the skin drops to shadow to kind of bolster with a little bit of pink. Work this area of the bicep shade a little bit more. Same as it goes into the underarm. Go over a little bit more of the green there. I'll move my hand so you can see. Notice how by putting a little bit more over that green, I darken that shade a little bit more, but I get a little bit more blood in the model, right? So you can see how as we go underneath the shoulder, in down towards the underarm, right, I can see that I'm pushing a little bit more of that blood there. If you were to lift your arm and look, right, you're going to see that all up in here, you're going to see more pink as it goes up into your underarm, right? Was that it? Echo Base, 7 months. Holy hell. Thank you, my friend. All right, again, notice how thin I'm painting. Very little pigment, all water. Right? Let's just keep going. Elbow, very thin skin on the elbow. Tough, but thin. Right? So we're going to go over the entire shadow area of the elbow. Working up a little bit through these shadow lines. And then the underside of the arm as well. Right? Notice how very little pigment is actually getting put out on the model as I go. Continue around. We get that bright side of the elbow here. Again, pushing it more towards the shadow, less towards the highlight. I still want to have a little bit of the elbow pop with brightness right there at the tip where there's just the skin showing, and just push a little bit of pink around that green. Right. Would you add a wee bit of mid-tone gray to it to bring it to more in line with the wasteland? Yeah. A mid-tone gray could work. A grayish blue might be your best bet, Grens, on that, rather than just a neutral gray. You're probably going to want to push it something like if you have a ghost gray or a wolf gray, something like that. Not too, ice blue in the gray, if you get my drift, but, a little bit of blue in it would probably be the key. You could just try what you got. It's going to be a little brighter. So you're just going to have to be careful and run it even thinner than I am. So because a brighter paint, when glazing like I do, will be even brighter on the model, right? So that's why I'm always starting with dark colors, dark, dull colors to glaze with in most cases, right? So that the action that we get doesn't brighten them up too much. Right? Notice how look at what it's doing to the green. The green doesn't look as alien anymore when you have the pink flesh around it. Right? You start getting realistic skin tones. The green starts to make better sense. Right, we'll push a little bit up here towards the wrist, right around this muscle group here. Very little paint actually going on the model this time, but it's having a big impact. Kind of like your final highlight, right? I'm not pushing it everywhere. Otherwise, like I said, you'll start to make the skin look a little raw. That's not what we're going for, raw and sunburn, but I will push a little bit more into the inside of this bend in the elbow on top. And a little bit as we get up towards the wrist guard here. Like so. Again, a little bit more as I start retreating into the area of the underarm. Right? And then of course down here where I've got a little bit of side of the pec muscle and everything, I'll go with covering that whole area with the wasteland soil, right? To bring out that kind of shaded, fleshy tone in there. Like so. Now that green and the wasteland soil are all that we're really seeing up underneath that underarm spot, right? But gives us some really unique coloration. Need to get a little bit more on the elbow on this side. So again, just kind of working from up the forearm, pushing paint down towards the elbow like that. Right, there we go. Sinks a little bit more of that green, but darkens the elbow up just the same. A little bit right in here. Anywhere if you're looking, if you got a little crazy with your green, a little bit of that wasteland soil goes a long way to dumping that green back as a subdermal color, so to speak. And then again, pushing now from the forearm up into the wrist area. Like so. And then same on the hand. Now pushing down from the top of the hand into the wrist area. So we reinforce that shadow. And then up along the knuckle and between the fingers. Really want to drive it home between the fingers. Not so much that it looks like he's got blood on his hand, other people's blood on his hand. We're just trying to make it look like he's got his own blood underneath the skin of the fingers there, right? Gives it kind of that pinkish right in between the fingers. That's what you get, right? Pinkish right in between the knuckles. That's what we're giving him. Don't take it up further on the fingers, right? Just let it sit kind of right there at the knuckle line. Like so. And now you can see great angle here where you can start seeing that subdermal green in the shadows, the pink really starting to jump out, right? I'm kind of almost so close that the camera doesn't want to focus really easy, so let's pull back just a hair. Casino, you got your mystery box yesterday? The Victoria miniature is awesome. It's like I love throwing just the random small stuff in there, you know? Like pretty much the cost of the mystery box is in the big stuff. And then I just kind of grab some cool stuff. So I'm glad you like that. You're more excited for the stickers, Ashman? I love the stickers too. I always love getting stuff like that. So like I said, I'm the guy that I sell the way I like to buy generally. I like getting good value and I like, you know, a little bit of swag every now and then is cool. So stickers I think go a long way. I love them. You can never have enough stickers. Assassin, you're watching on your computer, your phone, and your Xbox in triplicate? So if I go, woo, that's going to sound really weird for you. I should do that every now and then, just so you freak out. Big Bob, somebody unplugged the router on you. Ah!
I know a website that shows monkeys doing it.
Dano, did we miss first whip? Nope, we'll be doing it here in just a second. After we get done with this red. By the way, can you order like 6 mystery boxes and just have you ship you once a month? Grins, I've actually had people ask if we would do a subscription thing on mystery boxes. And we have the ability to do that, but I don't want to start it and then like have 2 people take part in it. It's a lot of effort to build it up. And if a lot of people are going to take part in subbing for it, maybe. We've got some plans. Twitch is coming out with some new stuff they're going to announce at TwitchCon. But we can't talk about it before then. As long as it all goes the way we think it's going to go with them, then starting, say, November, December, end of the year, beginning of next year, we're going to include a subscription service on the website. And part of it might be something like that, like a small mystery box every month of cool stuff. We're playing with a lot of ideas right now. Put candy in the order, like you're trying to make you a diabetic. You've tried buying from the web store, but your PayPal doesn't accept your card, so you can't purchase from me? Say what? PayPal doesn't take your credit card? I've never even heard of that. Link your bank account. You're done. It's easy. I think you have to have maybe a link bank. I don't remember. I've had a PayPal account for so many eons that I forget how it works. But we are looking at getting just a standard payment processing for credit cards because we have some people that don't want PayPal, and we understand that's a restriction. So coming in the future, you'll see that. Okay, we're going to move over to this other arm now. Push a little pink up into the shadow there on the outside of the green again. Is that a psychotic? No, it's a Telemachus. What's going on, man? Catching the tips of these muscles as they pull in towards those green shadows. Right, just a little bit of the bottom of the bicep, up the side a little bit into the shadow, and then right here at this kind of spot at the top of this forearm muscle as it goes back towards the elbow like that. You can see it better right there. When you do this right, there's some angles where you won't even see it, and that's fine, right? You're not trying to have this be visible all the time necessarily. Just like real skin, like I showed you before. You know, if I turn my hand like this, the top of my fingers tend to bring on that kind of green, and the bottom brings on that magenta that we're painting on. But then I go like this, and the green changes facing or disappears entirely. You still get the magenta, but less green, right? So don't worry if from some direction this thin, transparent layer of paint you're putting on just kind of isn't visible at all. That's kind of the goal. Right, I push a little bit more pink up onto the bicep as it goes up into the underarm there. And then I want to get a little bit down low on the bicep as well. Okay. I'm liking that. Get a little, as I'm looking over here on this arm, I want to build up a little bit more on the shoulder that dips into shadow there. So, I want to come up here underneath the chin, start working the neck area. Again, here I'm going to go ahead and take the liberty to put a little bit of pink all up in the shadow area, just to kind of enrichen those shadows, number one, right? But also the neck has a lot of blood in it. So all along the side of the Adam's apple here in the shadow. Down the neck. He's a redneck, I swear to God. Right. so. I can stand to have a little bit more there. We still got to go back with our flesh tone highlights, so I'm happy with that. A little bit more red in the neck. Back of the arm, again, going from kind of, a quarter of a way through the arm muscle and then pushing the red up into the shadow here. Building it up closer towards the shoulder guard. So, and then a little bit on these muscle groups. Remember how we came in with the green and we redefined that kind of muscle shape there? Go in and just outline the outside of that green a little bit. So you get just a little faint hint of pink in between those muscles. Not too much. Notice how I'm never overriding my skin tone anywhere. I'm never just painting the top of a muscle. Unless I'm in shadow. Like back here. Here I can stand to do a little bit more red across the surface of the muscle as it drops in the back, shadowed by that green. Just add the red over all of it. Gonna help make that shadow look even deeper and give the feeling of, flesh and blood in there. My Q-tip, because that's an area I can't reach with my finger to smudge. Just a little hint of pink right in there by the elbow. And that's looking really good. See that halo of pink as it goes into shadow? Works really well. Both sides, kind of. As I'm looking at my balance side to side, I'm finding myself wanting a little bit more pink right here. So, yep, that did it. That balanced it out left to right. You can see you've got the pink content that we have on the arm here, but over here it was lacking in the shoulder area, so I just went in and dropped a little bit more underneath, just to give us a little bit of balance. Looking good. Let's get this hand. Like before, I'm going to get these knuckles right in between each knuckle with the wasteland soil. Not the tops of the knuckles, just right in between them. Like so.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Ronade, what's happened? Thank you for that follow. Right, so that gives you that. I mean, look how much change you get from just a little bit of this wasteland soil between the fingers and what it did to the green that was between the fingers. Right? The whole hand starts to look more natural now just from that little bit of pink. Right? The green that was forced up into the shadow between this leather around the wrist guard now doesn't appear so green because your eye starts to gravitate towards hues that stand apart from the base of color of the model. So if we got mostly skin tone, you put a little green on it, the eye gravitates towards the green because it's alien. Right? It's like, okay, that, what is that? Then you start balancing it out by putting in our case, the wasteland soil to bring the pinks and the red, the blood red kind of color back into the skin. The eye now balances out. So you're not seeing quite as much of the red as you're putting on the model, and you're not seeing quite as much of the green as you're putting on the model. The two are balancing out with the flesh tone, and it's starting to work across the surface to give you a very, very rich tone and realistic tone that we talk about the brain now wrapping itself around and going, oh, that's skin. There's nothing alien about it. And to some extent that happens even when you are painting alien flesh. Say you're painting this green, but you add in a little bit of blue and purple, and then you add in a little bit of yellow to give the same kind of veiny blood under the skin feel. Even though it's all alien colors, the brain will wrap itself around the way those colors interact and create kind of a, I don't like to say splotchy, but an organic feel on the flesh. The brain starts wrapping around and going, that must be skin. Because even though the colors are wrong, the way they interact is right for the way we're used to seeing skin. And so that's how all textures get applied in miniature. You start feeling like, okay, what are the things that stand out about leather, right? The splotchy way that or the non-uniformity of the way it wears, the way the colors blend. And so you start painting in that, and the brain starts saying, oh, that must be leather, even though it's all just plastic, right? So very quickly, we get very natural appeal on the model, just from the little bit of pink that we've added in. Now all that green is less alien. You know, you can still see the green in the shadow on the thigh, but you can't see that same green the same way on the arm where we've added in the red. And once we put it on the thigh, same thing. That green will become, quote unquote, less green, right? But we'll still get the benefit of having it on the model. We're not covering the green. We still want the work that the green is doing. We just want it to look natural, okay? Anthony Lone, what's going on? You been lurking the last few days? Ain't nothing wrong with a little lurk in your life. And I guess that's not Ron Aid. I bet that's Ron Old. I bet that's an L. All right, let's continue on. Let's get this thumb done. I want to get this red done so I can start looking at what you guys are doing. If you're working on this model in our paint along, for those of you that bought it, put up your work. I want to see everybody's work. I don't care if you're ashamed. I don't care if you feel like you're not doing it right. You're not getting the results you want. I want to see your work.
Who the hell are you?
We want to all see what you're doing. Even if you're struggling with it, make sure you put it up over in the whip gallery. Nick from Arena Rex has been hanging out with us, and he's been painting the model. He put up all of his work from yesterday. Everybody so far has been doing a fantastic job with getting their skin tones laid in really, really nice. So I'm stoked to see what you guys are coming up with today. So go over, type !whip in chat, and you can post up what you're working on, even if you're not working on this model. All right, we're going to start in on the legs. So again, I'm going to drag in some of our red right along the border of our shadow mostly. Pushing it up into the green a little bit. Bring that pink in on the thigh, back of the knee here. Starting with just a halo around all of the shadow of the muscles. Right? Staying away from the muscle top. Making sure I get coloration into all these shadow areas for sure. Right? And immediately, remember what I said, we start putting some red in there, and look how much less of that green you see instantaneously. Not because we covered it up. We're not covering, look at how thin I'm painting. We're not covering up the green. A little bit of red on it changes its hue just ever so slightly, but the red balances it out. You can see there's still a lot of green up in that shadow area right up by the clothing, but the red down below it, the pink as we go into the muscle tone, right, makes that green look completely different instantaneously. Just a little bit of paint. A little bit of paint does such a huge amount of work. All right, same thing as we go through the back of the calf. Halo these muscles. Ride that line right in between where we put the green. Trying to stay away from the actual top of the muscle because I don't want to overtake our flesh tones anywhere. All right, just adding in a little pink as we go. And it's not, I keep saying pink, it's not really pink, it's wasteland soil. And then same right on the top of the toes, just like we did on the fingers. We want a little bit of pink on the toes. And all down the side of the leg, just kind of skirting the edge of the muscles as we go down the center here is all I'm doing. It's gonna look a little sloppy because of those leather straps, so don't let that bother you. And then on the inside here, right along the Achilles, just like we did with the green, we're just going to go right over all that green, balancing out that Achilles brightness with just a little bit of that red to the left and right of it. Just like that. Digging it. A little bit more in towards the shin right down here. Along there, right in there. Pinguda. And then remember the inside of the thigh here. Look, now look at the difference, right? Look at how alien that inside of the thigh looks now that we've been staring at all the other parts of the model. Look at the arm now. Less green showing, more of the pink and the green balancing themselves out. Same here on this part of the arm, this part of the leg. Less of that green looking like green, and just playing around in the shadows with it now. But now look here, right? As you start looking at the model, it's like, oh, what the, you know? What looked good before now looks kind of alien and out of place. So you just drop some red on it. Same thing we did over there. Start dropping a little bit of this red, again, starting up towards the shadows. Then coming inside this kind of hem line on the inside of the thigh. Here I'm going to paint the red like we did in all the shadow areas, kind of right over that green. And up a little bit at the top. I'm not putting any on the knee on the top, but I will on this bottom side, even where the knee was a little bit brighter on the bottom. Drop in a little bit of pink. All right. Now instantly we start seeing that part of the thigh change. All right, we've also got some green over here. We did a shadow. Push a little bit more pink into that. So. All right, and now the whole shadow of that leg starts changing instantaneously. Not quite as alien anymore. Just make sure you're not pushing so much red into it that, again, that it looks like he was burned in a fire, right? You can, if you find yourself needing to or feeling like maybe you need to put that kind of color on here because your green was too high, then take a breather and step back, because what you may really need to do is put a little bit more flesh tone on it. Now, we haven't had to do that here yet, and hopefully we won't. Right? But you can wind up in a situation where if you find yourself saying, oh God, I need more red, and the red's starting to make it look like, you know, he's burned in a fire or really raw flesh, stop. Because what you're really needing to do is put a little bit more of one of your skin tones on there. And that's okay. Not a problem with it. First couple of times you do this kind of stuff, you know, you're probably going in with a little bit too rich of a pigment. And so you'll want to play around with it until you get it right. And a lot of that is balancing out. You may need to go back with a little bit of our tanned flesh. Just the top of the knee there, skirting that green again, leaving the top of the thigh muscle with the flesh color, no red right on it, but just right around it. Like so. Anything over here? Just a little bit. The wasteland soil right, haloing that muscle on the side. And then just recreate it as we did on the other side. Top of the toes a little bit. Side of the ankle a little bit. There's less skin to show over here, so there's not just a whole lot you got to do. Bottom of that calf muscle is probably the only reason that you need to pay attention over on this side. Right, so we've got the calf down in there, so I'm going to want to get the brush and just in the shadow, the lower side of the calf muscle, drop a little bit of this red. And then down the ankle to the heel again, like so. Right. Anything over here, a little bit in the shadow of the heel, right there. That's pretty much it. Feeling pretty good about this. Let's take a look, check our balance again. Right, I like the look of the leg versus the arm. Right, the thigh can have a little bit more pink content, a lot more blood, a lot more going on in the thigh than on the back of the arm, so that's fine. I like that transition right there. Looks really good. This side of the arm, I'm digging the pink up through here, through the hand, back of the arm, deeper in the kind of underarm area, less, but just a little bit up on top of the shoulder. Looks good. Same, not much you can see down here to balance out, but it looks good from what I'm seeing. A little bit of red on the back towards the Achilles and on the side of the foot, so all of that's looking really good. Turn this way, where our arm is in shadow. We've balanced out those greens really well. A little bit of pink. Fingers are looking good with the pink inside. We didn't do the palm, so I got to do the palm of the hand too. Balances out really nice with the neck here. The neck with the blood and the shadow looks really good there. The knee, again, not a whole lot of skin down here, but the knee balances out very well how it should. Bright at the top. We don't have as much shadow down here, except on the inside of that other leg. So again, I feel like we're good and balanced. There's not an area that stands out with too much red versus any other or too little. versus any other, so I'm liking that. In this direction, good again, nice pink underglow on the chin or the throat there, balances out nicely on the arm. A little bit here. I'm thinking I might want a little bit more in the bicep area here. I feel like that might be a little bright. Not quite. Well, I don't know. I look at it from this angle and I like it. It may just be that from the light we saturate a little bit there. So I think I'm going to leave that. I like it. Balances out nicely through the leg. Yeah, it's just the light saturating the skin tone. Because see how the leg here doesn't look as pink on the knee where it's bright either. So I think both of those look really good. Balances out nicely with the leg that's in shadow over here. Nice. One thing I forgot, though, palm of the hand, right? No pink on the palm of the hand. It's one of the areas where you're going to have the most. So let's go back one last time. Get some wasteland soil on the brush. And here, we're just going to kind of stipple red in. I'm going to focus on the lines in the palm, those darker lines, inside of the fingers. Pad of the thumb, this part of the palm there. Bingo bango. There you go. Instantaneous, more like hand, right? Hand has a lot of reds and pinks in it, as well as all the flesh tones and yellows and oranges and blah, 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 blah. Not a whole lot of green in the palm of the hand, though, right? So we want to push a little bit more red in there, and that looks really good. Real simple. I mean, we didn't really have to do much. Looks good. Now, see how easy it is to get that palm flesh color with the same exact colors we used everywhere else. Just a little bit more of the wasteland soil there. A little bit pinker, a little bit more blood in the hand. Even though his arm's up, and technically when it has his arm raised like that, you're going to get less red there, right? Lots of red in the extremities. If you're standing with your hands down at your waist, or if the hands are below the shoulder line, lots more red in them than if they're up, right? That's just blood flow, right? But on a model this size, it's not really particular to have to worry about that too much. Okay. Push a little bit of pink on the inside of this bicep, just right here on the top, and same with the shoulder. So. Bingo. All right, time to take a break, see some pictures. What are you guys working on? Throw it up on the whip. I'll give you a couple minutes while my nose tries to run off my face and my glasses don't stay on my hat. State of my day right here. I don't know why my nose is running. Excuse me while I wipe my nose. Let's pretend we hit a part a bit thick. How would you... Let's pretend. Asking for a friend. Ray Silver says, let's pretend we hit a part a bit thick. How would you recover it if a brush slips, say, on the left arm bicep, hypothetically asking for a friend? With what color, Ray? With what color? If we messed up with the red? Is that what you're asking? You were feeling great until the wasteland soil? What? What? It's the best color. It has the best effect. It's the thing that drives it home. And it's the paint you paint the thinnest with. I should get a monocle and chuck the glasses? A monocle? Dude, I can't. If with just one eye? Hell no, man. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Nick Uglove in chat from Marina Rex. You're loving the green and pink. It works great, doesn't it? For Caucasian flesh tones, it's awesome. When you're doing darker flesh tones, African flesh tones, instead of so much... Well, I still use the green, but I tend to use a little bit more of a purpley red. Instead of wasteland soil, I'll move into something more akin to... here it is. This one, Grimoire Purple, right? It's just got a little bit more purple content, right? And then I'll use the wasteland soil. So it's like a three-step process when I'm doing darker skin tones. But either way, it works amazingly, for colors that you wouldn't normally think of with flesh. It works so good to get a natural tone work up without having to worry so much about having a million different flesh tones. I use the same flesh colors on damn near every model. It's just how much red do you put in? How much of the wasteland soil do you use versus how much of the green? How much do you want to add in another color? Sometimes you might use a little bit of blue. If you're making this guy a zombie and you want it dead, you can use a little hemp or like a what am I thinking of here? What's that green gray cement color from Vallejo Model Air? They have a color called cement that's kind of a weird greenish gray. You can thin it down, but you can see how using this thin painting method, you can start to put these filter layers over it, right? Not much color. Like nowhere on here can you see that this red was actually like a paint. Let's zoom in to like porn star pimple level here, right? You can't tell that that's really paint necessarily because you can't see that I just slopped, paint on there. There's no line of it. It just kind of sits in color and gives you really, really cool tones and a very organic sense on the model, right? There's no lines painted, right? The thinness automatically blends it on there. So you can go as far as you want. We're doing this, fairly quickly, right? We're not using a lot of color. You could use more color here and glaze more color in and work in finer, narrower bands and put as much color on as you want. If you wanted to take this model and make it, your best award-winning model, these same techniques, just adding more colors in, right? So that you cover all of those steps in between. It just becomes the monotony of, okay, there's one little bitty line of this color that blends in, and then one little bitty line of this color that blends in. But you can see this method lays paint on top, one layer after another, after another, after another, blending as you go without very much effort. I hate to say without very much effort, because if you're trying this and having problems with it, it's still a technique that requires you learning and getting a feel and adjusting your hand, your brush pressure, and your brush feel to suit, because if you're heavy-handed, this won't work as well. So like I always say, you're going to have to learn to paint very light strokes so that you're not pushing paint heavily across the model every time you do it. You want to leave very, very thin layers on there, so you're treating it with kid gloves every time you're laying a paint on, right? But as you do, you can see, working it up real quick, that it gives you a really, really amazing skin tone very, very quickly. And you see, as you rotate the model, you'll see the greens poke out more in certain light and less in others, and so on and so forth. More of the pink poking out in certain angles than others. And that's the way skin acts, right? So it's going to look different across it because you're creating the illusion of translucent layers of skin. That's what we're going for. Ray, you're saying you swear you're feeling great, you couldn't get it to thin right, and then I said without very much. That's why I said that, Ray. Slits wrist. No, I'm not saying it does. It's just that, once it is the caveat of preparing your brain and then practicing the thickness of paint and getting it as thin as I'm painting with it, right? Because like I said, let's put some wasteland soil out here. And I'll show you exactly the way I've been painting with this wasteland soil, right? It's no different than we've been doing with any of the other colors, right? You can see how thin my paint is going as I'm pulling it off and using it on my palette. All of these spots that I showed you yesterday, right? So come over here to my water and drag out a little tail of wasteland soil like this. And this is what I've been painting with, right? I'm painting with dirty water is all this is. The whole time. Everything that I'm doing on the model, I'm going in like this. Right? And this is a little bit thinner than I'm used to, right? Notice how the splotch kind of blurs quicker. So this is thinner than we're doing most times, because as you go thinner, the more you're just going to get a slight filter of color, right? Do this when you're not trying to push much color on the model. Bingo. And this is what we're painting with the whole time. More like watercolor. Sometimes that's what clicks for people. Oh, treat it like a watercolor, if you've ever worked with watercolors. It's just that acrylics, when you thin them down, act differently, because watercolor's meant to go on porous surfaces. That's what makes it work. Otherwise, it doesn't dry. It doesn't cure. It just floats around, right? But you're trying to create a watercolor workability out of acrylic, right? Yeah, you just didn't take it thin enough. Yep. Robo Whale, dirty water is a thing, man. Max Payne, what am I using as a palette? Just palette paper. Just palette paper. If I turn on my palette cam, you'll see. So this is the palette that I'm using right here, right? So here was the tail of the wasteland soil that I've been using. Notice that you'll kind of see. Let me see if I can get my camera to show you everything here. You'll see that each of my colors has just got a a paint drop on my palette paper on each of these, and then the tail of paint that I pull out and thin as I go. Now these look a lot darker than I'm actually painting because obviously I'm using a lot of it. And so as I keep pulling more paint out and it dries and paint out and it dries, it turns opaque on the tail. But these are all the very, very thin, strips of paint that we've been using on this model. All of my flesh tones, my green over here. I think I used the green off of this strip of palette paper here, but here's the green. Then the wasteland soil. Some models I was doing here recently obviously had grays and blacks on them, so it's literally everything you see me doing when I paint is done with this same method. See how all these drops, I just line them up. I put a drop of paint, pull a tail out of it, and keep working in this little what looks like a vertical line of paint coming down. And that's the way my whole palette works all the time, right? So I use one of these 9.5 by whatever size this palette paper is, 9 by 12. Yeah, 9 by 12 palette paper. I'll use it forever. You can see how, well, the part that you can't see up here is all the paint from the last set of models that I've been doing. And it just got so loaded up with paint, me going over and over and over again. Then I turn it around and use the other half, right? But that's how my palette looks. And this is just a piece of palette paper. It's all wax coated palette paper. Nothing fancy. No wet palette. Nothing. Something that everybody can use. Just go buy yourself some wax. You can just use wax paper out of your kitchen. With the same kind of, you see that has a sheen on it. You can just use wax paper from the kitchen and get the same exact functionality. I tear these little pieces off so I can show you guys. And like I was saying yesterday, if you take, your paint, I work out of the same spot the whole time, and I'm just used to doing this. So for me, I've just got the feel down. I've been doing it for years. And so I can just keep pulling paint out here, and I know when it's the right thickness, and then I pull it over and I wipe it on my thumb just to check, that's where all this is coming from. But for you guys, as you're getting used to painting thin, just take a little bit of the paint, move it to another part of the palette, and make sure your consistency's right. Thin it down until you're like you want it. So like that, let's say. If we're painting really thin and filtering like we're doing with this red, maybe that's the way you want it. Maybe you got to get it thinner than that, right? So you just add a little bit more water, push that dot of paint around, and watch how the dot interacts with the water in the paint layer, right? For filtering, like this, notice how the dot of paint bleeds back into the water very quickly. That's about what you want. Other times when we're looking to get more color on there, more specific places, highlighting and stuff, you want to push that dot and not have the dot bleed, right? So I'd come over and grab a little bit more paint and take it to another spot on the palette, right? And I'll push it so the dot doesn't bleed, right? So I don't add so much water. This dot stays a little bit more coherent and doesn't bleed back through all the water, right? Whereas this one, when I push it, immediately starts retreating back through the water and saturating back through the brush stroke. So you just got to get used to, okay, one way that you're painting, you're keeping the paint consistency so that it's still very, very thin, it's transparent, but as I move my paint dot, it moves less at the end, right? If it moves more than you want it, grab a little bit more paint in your water, push it over to the side. Okay, now it's not moving as much. That's looking pretty good. It's staying pretty circular. Well, it's oval or whatever, but whatever. It's not bleeding back in as much. Okay, so that's pretty good for if I was doing something like, a base layer, over another color. That's about the consistency I'm using all the time. As opposed to, hey, I just want to filter like I'm doing on the skin right now. So I push the dot, and the dot immediately retreats back and bleeds back into the water. So this is thin enough to use for that kind of filtering, right? This one over here is still just sitting as a dot. This one over here eventually will bleed and saturate back through all of this to where it's almost non-existent. So it's just getting used to that, And then as you work more towards highlights, and I do edge highlighting, sometimes I'm coming in and I'm working, damn near, well, I'm never working really thick, but I will paint with paint like this when I'm doing like an edge highlight because I want it to have a consistent paint, all the way down a line. But look at the difference between that when I put it on my finger and all of the rest of them. Right? The other rest of them you can see through. This one becomes darker. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. But I rarely, if ever, other than whites and sometimes ivory for that last little pinpoint highlight, I rarely ever just use paint without any water. Like hardly ever. That's just kind of, if there is a secret to my painting style, this is the secret. There is no secret except lots of water. That's all there is. And it just lets you be so much more in control than any other paint style that I've found, because layering, I get to dictate how much paint sits on top of this color versus this color. And You know, if I have a model that's base coated, let's say you take a model and you use like one of the Army Painter base coat sprays. You spray a model with flesh color, right? I think they have a flesh, don't they? I've got them all here. Yeah, they've got like a flesh tone. So you spray a flesh tone base to do a model that's like this. Well, now if you start painting thin layers on top, you're in control of how much of that base layer shows through all of your other colors. And you get so much control on every specific point of the model, as opposed to going in with opaque paint and you put too much paint on and then you're like, now I got to go back to the original paint and paint it over and back and forth and back and forth. You can still do back and forth here, but it just becomes much easier because you're just tinting paint. So if you went too bright in an area, just a little bit of darker paint over that will sink it back down. Too dark in an area, a little bit of your brighter highlight over it will bring it back up. So you find yourself never having to cover an area and redo it if you're working thin enough, right? So that's why I say you can be a little bit more fearless as you go, right? Because now our skin is really just come to life. I mean, legit, we have a good skin tone here. We could, if we wanted to, we could just stop here and we could say flesh, done, right? My green has a person's face in it, did it? Everybody always says that. We've cut some of these out before. Like people have seen, oh, like here? Is this like an eye and a mouth down here? Like you're seeing faces in the clouds, like a monster? Once we had a skull, I cut the skull out because I'd be doing this lesson and somebody goes, oh, look, there's a horseshoe or there's a face. And I'll look at the face and I'll draw like a picture and I'll cut it out and I'll put it in somebody's order when they order from the store. Just stupid shit like that. So there's people out there that get random nonsense in their boxes from the store where they're like, what? Why do I have this paint splotch on a piece of paper? Your mom is curious as to how you would paint Oriental skin. Basically, you could do Oriental skin the same way we're doing here. You could go a little bit darker flesh. This is a good kind of example, right? So where you're not going quite as bright as we are on this guy, right? And if you kept it a little bit darker, and then after you do your pinks, you could go in with a little bit more yellow. One of the things we're going to be doing with this guy, our next color, believe it or not, is Troll Claws, which is kind of a, I don't know what you call it. It's a gross flesh tone. I'm not real sure what this is. It's like a really dirty, light ochre color. And we're going to go in and we're going to do some glazing over the tops of the muscles with this to give it that yellow kind of olivey tone that we're going for. And that's kind of like what I would do for Asian skin. Just depends on how far you want to push it. With the Asian skin tone, sometimes the green is a little bit more prominent as we're going through and doing it, right? So here we stuck to kind of the shadows. With Asian skin tone, you might bring that green up a little bit, you know, thinly onto the tops of the muscle surface. Push it back then with a little bit of pink, and then over the top of it do, you know, something like a Troll Claws again, right? You don't want yellow, but it gives you that kind of, you know, because if you go yellow, it starts looking dead. Right? That's just not the way skin looks when it's healthy. But we all have the pinks, we all have the greens and the blues and the flesh. It's just you'll add a little bit of yellow to it. And you'll see, because we're going to do that same process here that would be very close to how I would paint Oriental skin, except this is brighter, right? To me, you know, general, when you're looking at like that Asian flesh tone, it's going to be a little bit darker overall. So I might not push it up to barbarian flesh. I might have started with a base layer of, say, fur brown as my shade, and then go into tanned flesh, right? And then over the tanned flesh, I start doing the green like I just did, right? And the wasteland soil like we just did. Here, let me back the camera out a little bit, right? And then instead of going to barbarian tone as my highlight, I would start going into things like the Troll Claws with the yellow over the top, right? But because my flesh is darker, the yellow will have the green, and the wasteland soil will have a little bit of a different effect on that than they do on the brighter tone. And you can see that right here because that's what's happened, right? This is the same exact style workup, just with two different brightnesses of flesh. Right, so notice how the red is deeper, right? It's not quite as pink on the model on the right versus the model on the left, where you can get a little bit more hint of the pink because it's going over brighter flesh tones, right? So that's how it works. The same exact colors, right? It's just less of the barbarian flesh, so the skin stays light or darker over here on the right than over here. And then the same workup has different effects because, again, painting thin, If you go with a super thin red over a dark brown, it looks different than if you go with that same super thin red over just a little bit lighter shade of that same brown. So you can play with your layers. That's how I keep referring to how much control this style of paint gives you, because it does. I put on 2 layers of brown, it's going to become more opaque, and it makes all of the paints I put on top of it act differently. If I choose to only put on 1 layer of that same brown, say in the shadows, it's going to keep it darker, and then when I go over it with the reds and the greens, that's going to have a totally different effect in the shadows, which gives me that kind of organic feel that skin should give, as opposed to trying to mix and pick a bunch of different colors, and you're 15 colors in trying to figure out what goes where, right? You just get so much control when you're doing it like this. So I sound like I'm always talking about control. It's like, he's a control freak. How does Jen live with this guy? I'm really not. I'm really not. Your green was slightly lighter? Yeah. Yeah, which is fine. Right? It's fine. I go with dark. Remember that, one of the things we talk about so much on the stream is that when you are painting thin, you're always going to start visualizing your colors darker than what you really want on the model. I don't want this dark green on the model. What I'm really looking for is a green more like, say this is the color I'm looking for on the model, right? More like this. But I can't, if I put this color on the model, anytime it touches lighter flesh tones, it's going to go even brighter than this because of how thin we're painting. Right? Because the bright flesh shows through and blends with this green, and it makes the green brighter. So you got to be careful. If you look at your paint collection and you say, okay, Fuse was using his green look like this when he was done. Don't do that. You got to go darker. Because where this green hits our lighter flesh tone, we get this green that we wanted. Right? So I know it's another brain fart or mind screw that goes along with painting thin, but you get used to it. You get used to using darker colors than you're used to. Like your palette starts to look very dull and dark, but when you get done painting, you get very bright, vivid colors out of it because you're layering it up. Sometimes you're relying on that pre-highlight that we use, right? You're relying on that pre-highlight of white to make those dark colors pop, right? So you can see here, the dark brown that I use that you can see in the shadows over here, right? The dark brown, when it sits over the white of the muscles, looks very light. This is that dark brown on the top of the pecs. Right? It looks very light over here, but it's dark in the shadows, right? Because that's just the way the white plays with it. But it's one color, it gives you shadow and highlight all at the same time when you play with it like that. And the same thing, if you just paint brown and then light brown, and then whatever you go over light brown with will be brighter than it is over the dark brown, so on and so forth. Waterproof notepads also work, as that's what you use. Oh, for your palette, yeah, definitely. Definitely, the military waterproof writing pads are good. They're kind of just waxed paper. Black Wolf, that's why I'm Rob Boss. Max Payne, when you drag it out and try to spread it, it just runs into a line. It doesn't spread like mine does, Max. Are you too thin? Try adding a little bit more paint and play with it until you get it just right. If you're saying you drag it out and spread it, it just runs into a line, then you're too thin because the paint's running back into the water. It's saturating very quickly because there's not enough pigment to hold itself together. What happens with paint, with acrylics, there's a polymer in it, right? And that polymer is what bonds all the pigment together. Those polymers are particles of clear paint, let's say, right? Because the acrylic is really just plastic. So they're polymer particles, the same thing that if they were really dense would make solid plastic. And they're loose in that, and it's a suspension. I always keep wanting to call it a solution, but acrylic paint is a suspension. The pigment doesn't actually dissolve into the water. It's still solid pigment, and the only reason that it stays put is that those polymers bond in the suspension and keep the pigment attached to them, right, through that chemical bond. As you add water, that chemical bond spreads, and the polymers get further and further apart as you add more of that beautiful H2O. And so the pigment can't lock, and eventually you put so much water that the polymers now float free and don't have the chemical bonding, right? So their structural integrity breaks, so to speak, and they just float freely around, and that's why then they start saturating through the water and your pigment doesn't go where you want it. So that's too thin. So just add more paint to the water until you get it to where there's a dot of paint that moves around like you see when I do it. That's all. You're just going too thin. It is possible to go too thin. right? You break the paint. That's what we call it. If you put that paint on the model, when it dries, sometimes it cracks or it looks like it cracks. The color has a line in it where the pigment doesn't stick together because it can't bond anymore. You've broken the chemical properties of the paint. If you use matte medium, will it help stick? The matte medium can be used as a glazing medium instead of water if you'd like. It will allow the paint to thin without actually breaking the bonds. That's what glazing mediums and matte mediums can be used for. They also extend the drying and cure time for the paint, so be careful with that. Good question. You can, if you would choose to use that instead of water. It just makes the paint, you have to wait between putting more layers on. Like you'll see me go over an area of the paint and then go back over it very thin. By the time I put, a little bit on a muscle with the pink, and then I go and I clean my brush and go back to the palette and then come back, I can paint over that same area because the paint with the water dries almost instantaneously for me here in Arizona. We're in like 0 humidity, okay? But depending on where you're at, even if I used a medium, I would have to be careful because if I use the matte medium to thin, yeah, it has the same effect. I can go ahead and paint, get the same exact results, but by the time I go back, clean my brush, go back to the palette, come back over here, it's still wet. And if I add more, then I'm going to move paint around and break my consistency that I put on. So just be careful if you're using medium. Make sure that you paint a little bit in one area, go back to the palette, clean it off, come back and maybe paint, somewhere else on that arm. And then go back and then paint somewhere else on the other arm. And basically do one layer everywhere and then look at it and go back and start fixing those once they set up and cure because the mediums all extend the dry time of the paint. So that's the only thing you have to worry about with that. And I say worry, you just have to become familiar with it and add it to your arsenal of technique. Anthony Lone says, if you want to varnish with your airbrush, do the same lures apply as a rattle can? Example as humidity and issues. Yes, some varnishes will hate you. I mean, because that's all it is, right? So the rattle can varnishes, it's a little bit different when it's under pressure like that. And the consistency of the paint, one of the biggest problems with the spray can is that the size of the particles coming out are a lot bigger. The spray nozzle is just bigger. So they tend to act a little bit differently than when you're running it through an airbrush. If you're inside using your airbrush, generally it's not going to affect it based on your humidity. Every now and then you might see that you'll have to run a very thin layer of varnish over it and then use your air to dry that thin layer and then apply it again real thin. If you go heavy, you can get some milky consistency if you're super humid outside. Generally that'll go away, but sometimes not. So just get used to applying very thin layers, letting them, using some air so that if you're using matte varnish, spray a thin layer, then use air so that you see it actually matte the paint down, and then, go over with another layer, things like that. You don't have to wait 24 hours is what I'm saying. In general, if you're in the Philippines, 100% humidity all day, every day, then maybe you need to go ahead and just spray one layer and let it sit for a day and then come back and spray another layer, but, you'll get used to it. All right, let's take a look at some whip. Let's see what you guys are working on. Let's do it. Exclamation point whip in chat. It'll send you over to slowfusegaming.com. And let's see what we got. Oh, I'm loving it. We already got lots of pictures coming in. Bing, bing, bing. Let me get down to where we need to start. This guy. First, what we're going to do is I'm going to run through a Batmite. That's awesome. I'm going to run through and pick out all the pictures first that we have of our paint along, and then we will come back and look at all of the non-paint along stuff. I want to stick with the vibe of looking at what we're doing along with the Tribune first, and then, like I said, we'll come back and take a look at everybody else's stuff. Ooh, somebody got a bunch of cool stuff in the mail from us. All right, let's take a look. I think this is Ray Silver. It is. Ray, you swear you're going to take a hammer to your hands. A hammer to your hands? Why? I'm digging what I'm seeing here. I'm digging. Let's start looking here. This thigh looking really, really good. I just get a hint of green in the shadows. Right? Really good there. I like what I'm seeing over here on this muscle on the bicep. The throat is looking good. I see a little bit of deep green right in here, so you're probably going to want to go through on the underside of this bicep and probably add in a little bit of our tanned flesh again. Thin your tanned flesh and just go back through the shadows. You're going to have to work that area because you're just a little dark right there, right? It looks a little like there's something going on, like he's got mud in there or something like that. So to get rid of that shadow being so deep, take a little bit of our base color of that tanned flesh, thin it out, run it just inside that groove and blend it, you know, as you can. And then you'll go back over that with the barbarian flesh if you need and just kind of rework that area. But because you're working thin, should go right easy. You just got that one little area. You want to keep it dark shadow, but not so green. Your green got a little heavy right in there. Other than that, man, this is looking really good. I don't know what you're worried about. I'm digging it. Hand is looking good. Seeing good pink content there. Yeah, this is looking really good, man. I don't know what you're worried about. Let's take a look at the next one. Yeah, even better on this side. Right, you've got a little bit of yellowing here on the skin from that green and the pink interacting with the flesh tones, which is good. Really, really good shadow and definition here on the shoulder and the bicep on this side. You don't have any overly dark spots. The muscle groupings are looking really good. Again, pushing up into the hand is looking really good. I don't know what you're complaining about, man. This is looking really good to me. You have to understand, a lot of these people that are doing this on our paint-along, this is the first time they're painting this way. So what I'm seeing literally is blowing me away, Ray. Like, you're nailing it. You've got the concept. You just need to practice to get it down as a technique that's easy and comes right off the brush for you. But you're well on your way. Like, well on your way, right? I'm not seeing big, huge paint strokes. I'm not being able to tell where one color starts and stops. They're blending really nice. That's exactly what you want. So your thickness of paint is working really well. I'm digging everything I'm seeing here, man. This is looking really good. But he's saying the next picture is the complaint. Uh-oh. Bum, bum, bum. All right, what am I seeing here? Your green is a little light. See, I'm seeing a lot of yellow content to it, which isn't a bad thing because you're going to notice when we go to the troll claws, we're going to add some yellow in. So I wouldn't complain about that yet, right? You might find that that works, although what you're losing with that brighter green is the shade that we're looking for. That bright green gives you a little bit of messel definition in the shadows, so I'm not sure it's going to work great right here, because it's really bright, right? So you might want to add in to that green, you know, like a little bit of just a hair of dark brown if you've got it. Take your green, add a little bit of dark brown, get it to be a mud color, and then go back over this really thin to get that shadow back in. Same thing here, right? You've got bright green, what looks like on all these straps where you need shadow. So just go back over those spots with it after adding a little bit of brown to it. It should work good. You could even add the tanned flesh to it, right? Might be even better. Right, so the green with the tan flesh might give you a color that would work really well. Okay? But again, the pinks are looking great, right? I'm thinking the reds are looking really, really good. He looks a little bit more raw here than in the other pictures. So it's a little bit brighter than I would like to see it. Like you're getting into that kind of I'm sunburned kind of feel. But nothing you can't fix with a little bit of, again, the tanned and the barbarian flesh very thin over that red will fix all that right up. Again, that's that fearlessness we talk about. When you're painting thin like this, it's all sitting in the right areas. Your paint's in the right areas. It's just a little bit too much. So go back over it with whatever paint would be in that area before you put the red. If it was the dark flesh, then go back in with a little bit of thin dark flesh there. If it was the lighter flesh, go in with a little bit of thin light flesh. And then if your red sinks too much, then now you know, go thin your red out even more and go back over those areas again and avoid that pinkishness. But it's good. Your location is good. Now just work it back and forth. Do that balancing act with your flesh tones, your greens, your reds. You're never having to worry about stripping an area as long as you get the right paint in the right area. Good, right? And now you can just layer and build on top of it and play with it. Because I'm not mad at what I'm seeing, other than that bright green is throwing me off a little bit because it's like a yellow. That's the only thing. Great job, though. Jack Dempsey, working on it. Oh, hell yeah, my friend. Hell yeah, I love this model. The knee, it gives us such a great way to look at it, and I'm really liking yours. You're in a little bit of a darker skin tone that I'm really digging, at least in the photo. It may be brighter in your world in front of you. The photo's a little dim, but I can see you've got bright skin tones. I'm liking the shadows as it goes up into the hem of the cloth here. The inside of this thigh and calf are really nice and dark. Very, very good there. The throat is looking really good. I can see those green hues in there, along with the pinks on the side. So you get a good shadow happening here. The musculature here is looking good, the underside of the arm. I'm thinking you're nailing it, man. Really, really good. Again, it's getting used to this technique and seeing what happens as you apply it at your end. Watching the paint as it comes off of your brush with your feel and seeing what happens to the model. Listening to me and adjusting as you go to make it fit the way you like to paint. You might find you have a little bit of a heavier hand, so you got to go a little thinner. You might feel like, you want to see more contrast in your color, so you go a little bit thicker, right? Again, it has to appeal to you visually at the end, so I'm loving the variances that we're seeing. Not every one of these models looks the same, and that's what we want, right? We want this technique and what we're showing you and how to do it to kind of then get blended in with things you've already learned and other techniques that are comfortable to you, so that it just kind of ups your game and puts you into areas where you see kind of blending and smoothing and colors and contrast that maybe you couldn't see before with the way you were painting. So I'm digging it. This looks great. Great flesh tone here. Ugh Love, it's Nick. Nick's killing it. Looking really good. Looking really good. Really good contrast on the muscle groups. Again, but not looking like you just painted, right? It's not like base coat, wash, highlight. This is blending really nice. The shadows are blending really nice up to the muscle group tops, right? Again, maybe a little dark on the bicep on this arm. Because it's the arm that's outstretched, we want to avoid super darkness there. Like I said on mine, I've got a little bit of darkness on the inside of the elbow on mine that I'm going to go back and fix. So I'll show you in just a second how you can do that. Because it's just a little dark for being facing the light. But we'll go back and work on that. I'm digging this, though. I can see the pinks here on the bottom of the knee, in the muscle. This is looking really, really good, man. And I know Nick was saying he's really digging it as far as the color combos. Looking really awesome. Yep, look at this. The back of that shoulder is looking really good. I'm seeing all the muscle groups. But again, naturally, right? The model may not have as heroic definition as, say, a GW model does. It's very realistic. And so being able to add the shadows where we want to see to keep those muscle groups separated is working great. You've nailed it. This is looking really, really good. This whole area right here is just exact definition of what we're looking for, right? I can see a little bit of a hint of that green at the bottom of the muscle groups, as well as some pink as it leads up and underneath. So the shadows are very natural. Really, really good. You guys are nailing it, man. Nailing it. Jack Dempsey, 2 of 2. Heck yeah. Now we can see a little bit more of the green on the muscle groups up on the arm. A little bit of that glow of green in the shadow. It looks really, really good, man. Really good. Again, very, very smooth transitions from the top of the arm, blending down through onto the bottom. Loving it. Knee is looking really good. Bright, but then giving a little bit of shadow as it folds back in. This leg looking perfect, right? Just a hint of light on the top of the knee and the top of this muscle here. And then on the outstep, love it. This is looking super, man. You guys don't need me. Shoot. Killing it. Houdini. Again, doing it. Houdini's smart. He's painting his model in 2 pieces. Unlike the rest of us schmucks that are just like, get it built, paint it. I'm horrible with doing assembly painting. I just put it all together and paint it. Whatever. I sit there and curse as I'm having to paint the inside of like his armpit that's up underneath this place I can't get the brush in, and yet, it's like, oh yeah, you can make that actually work. Awesome. Yep, same with Houdini. Get a really, really good color buildup in here. I'm not seeing much of the green, so I don't know if you've done that yet, Houdini. It looks like I'm seeing it on the inside thigh here. It may just be the exposure on your camera, though, because I do feel like I'm seeing it here on the leg where there's less brightness from the camera shot. It's probably just a saturation of these other colors that you got going on. I'm digging it, though. The flesh tones look good. Let's see if he's got another photo. Nope. Let's go back. I can see the muscle peaking. I can see the pink in the throat. Yep. Again, I'm digging it. The brightness on the top of the thigh here, or knee, coming out of the thigh and the knee muscle. Good stuff. Again, nice blending. Can tell that's working for you. Digging it. Digging it. Hopefully you guys are seeing how much different it is painting this way, that you don't really ever find those hard lines between your paint that you were fighting before. A lot of people always contact me going, hey, I'm having a hard time getting my paints to blend right. I'm not comfortable with it. And I'm like, paint thinner. And then once you tell them paint thinner about 10 times, and then show them like we do here on stream, this is how thin I'm talking about. And then they go back and they're like, oh, holy hell. I got natural bristle brushes and I started painting thin. And now I don't ever worry about where my paint goes together, right? It just always blends without me really having to try. And again, I hate saying that. You're still trying. It's just your technique makes it to where it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like you're having to break your back to get your paints to blend. Just Rex, when airbrushing, if you're getting spider webbing or your paint is just wicking off like rain on a windshield, how do you fix this? Less PSI, paint too thin? Okay, it can be a couple of things, Just Rex. It can definitely be that your paint is too thin. It can be that there is oily skin oil on the surface of the model, depending on if you're using resins and things like that. As long as you got a good primed surface, that should not be the case. So as long as you got a good coating of primer on there, then that you can usually toss that one. Too thin of paint will happen, but generally what the problem is when it's spider webbing is that you're holding the paintbrush in an area for too long. Whenever you airbrush, you got to be very, very careful, and you'll see whenever let me go back to get the cam on here. All right, so when I'm airbrushing, you'll notice always that even before I get paint happen, and I'll have air, and right before I start applying paint, I've got the tip of the brush moving like I have a palsy almost. You know, so it starts shaking like I can't keep my hand steady. And the reason for that is that as I start getting paint out, now the paint doesn't have the ability to build up in any one area for too long. And then I start moving it around and I'll steady it out and start moving it exactly where I need it. But you always want your airbrush tip in motion. If you stop to load up paint in an area, that's when it starts spider webbing. And I paint super thin. Now, you can ask anybody here if you haven't seen me airbrush before. I paint with the same stuff that I'm painting with off the brush. It's literally like water with a little bit of pigment in it, and I paint that way when I airbrush. And we get great results because I'm constantly moving, letting it build up in small layers. You start to recognize when the model gets wet, withdraw the paintbrush, let it dry real quick, or just give air on it instead of color. And then add a little bit more color, and then dry it with air. So you hear us joke about air, paint, paint, paint. That's how we paint, right? You put a little bit of paint down on the model, and then you back off the trigger to where it's just air, so you can help that paint cure a little bit, then add a little bit more. Because the thinner you go, the more you're trying to, quote unquote, like glaze or apply a filter where you're not just going hard color. The risk you take is building up too much on any one area of the model. Too much wetness, and it does start threading off because it hadn't had a chance to really grip to the model yet. You got to let it start curing. That's the way, polymer acrylics work. They're basically putting a plastic skin around the model, but until it kind of solidifies, it's workable. It'll push, and you've got air pushing it, so it will go wherever you want. So try to just work first before you start. You can play with thickness of paint and see if that helps you initially, but if then what you're finding is that you're getting paint spotting on the model, it's too thick, and you're not liking the way it's looking, thin it back down, and then just try to get used to keeping your paint moving around. When you're painting thin, if you're moving like this and you get a little bit of paint overspray on another area, because the paint is so thin, it really doesn't matter if it's just that quick overspray, because it doesn't put enough paint there to really give you a color. See what I'm saying? So you can continue moving your paintbrush, and it gives you a little bit of flexibility that way. So that's 9 out of 10 times that's the problem. You're keeping the paintbrush holding in one area too long. Ray Silver being a melodramatic wuss. I agree, you are. Man up. Put your big girl panties on. You got it. Oh, that's the hole in the arm. Gotcha. Zulazaji. Made your first Slow Fuse Gaming store purchase. Are the mystery boxes pre-made or boxed individually? Zulazaji, they're boxed individually. As soon as I get an order, I get to have fun and walk through the studio and find cool stuff to throw in them. Bam, box them up, go. There's no... every one of them is different. But we've had a lot of people buying like $100 mystery boxes. I'm running out of cool stuff to put in big ones. I was not expecting them to be as big of a hit as they are, which is awesome. Thank you guys for supporting the store like you do. But I'll go around and I'll be like, oh, that's a really cool Infinity model. Bam. Wow, that's a really cool Malifaux model. Bam. These are really cool paint colors. Bam. Here's a brush. Bam. Here's a this, that, the other. Yeah, I'll just load them up. I know one guy ordered a $100 mystery box and I think he got 12 different things in it. Like, I get carried away. I put everything that I want in the box, and then I go sit down and add up the retail price of all of it. So I don't, you're not getting $200 worth of stuff, because that'll drive us broke. So I'm trying to keep it business-like and fun all at the same time. But everything that I keep in the studio is stuff that I use and that I like, especially when it comes to the miniatures. All the miniatures that I have here are miniatures that I buy with myself in mind. Not that I'm using them, I buy them for the store, but I buy them because they're cool. I'd like to paint that. That's a really neat model. I don't even know what game it's from, but cool, it's bitchin', let's bring it in. And so then when I'm going around, I have fun going, the hard part is I'm like, oh, do I really want to get rid of this model? I would like to paint this model, but I know I'm never going to, so it goes in the box, bam, mailed out to you guys. It's a lot of fun. Houdini uploaded a 4th photo. All right, we'll check it in just a second. Just Rex. Definitely, man. I'm going to go. We're going to look at it. I'm just talking. I'm babbling. I'm answering questions. I'm being me. This one. Oh, here. Wait. Before we go too much further, like I said, we want to make sure we see all of these. That was Houdini. This one. We're looking at all of the paint-alongs first, and then we're coming back to all the rest of the whip. So don't sweat it. If you posted something up, we will be looking at your stuff. That's Houdini 7 again. Oh, okay, now we're getting a lot of better shading on it. And I'm seeing a lot of the green in the musculature here. Okay, good stuff. Yep, good stuff. I'm digging it. And I think there was one next to it, too. A close-up. Oh, not on screen. Damn. Damn, not on screen. Turned off the whip screen. Here we go. The other one was just this further away. Sorry. Okay, yeah, now I'm seeing the green. Perfect. Houdini, you nailed it, man. Notice how on Houdini's close-up here, right? We're so zoomed in, you cannot see my, let me back out real quick so that we can see my cursor jump back in here, maybe. Can you see it now? Yep, all right. For some reason, it loses my cursor. Look at this beautiful work, because look at just the hint of green he's got in here, right? And then with the little bit of the pink on the muscles, little bit of pink here on the throat, little bit of green underneath. You nailed it, man. You nailed it. You've got all of that nice flesh tone working in there for you. All that natural color coming together. This is working really, really well. Good job. Good job. Abel Frey. First time we're seeing yours, I think. Looking really, really good. Really good. Look at the knee. Seeing a lot of nice color in here right at the underside of the knee. Bright on the top. A little bit of that green poking in, or brown maybe. It looks like you've used a green in there. All right, same thing. Good flesh tone. Pink on the toes. Arm is looking good. Yeah, I can see the green in the shadow on the forearm underneath. That's looking really, really good. Look at the back of the hand. The transition into the light of the fingers as it goes up towards the sunlight here. Really, really good transitioning here. Neck is looking good. All you guys are murder in this model, man. I'm glad we did this. This is being awesome. Great job. Great job. Snipe, what's going on? Great job, everybody. All right, let's go back to the beginning and take a look at everybody else's stuff. I think it starts with Batmite. Batmite! Snot Rash didn't have Arena Rex to follow along with, so you did this last night. Not sure if you like it or not, though. What's not to like about Batmite? This is a funny as hell model. This was the Gen Con exclusive thing, wasn't it? Or one of the recent cons, I think, right? It's looking good to me, man. I like it a lot. Your use of color fits the cartoony nature of the model, right? So you haven't gone in with tremendously realistic blends. You've got good shading on here, but it goes to bright real quick, right? So I love it, right? I don't know that anybody would complain about this. This is awesome. Yeah, this is awesome, man. Looks good. Great job. A little light on this picture. Gotcha. Brighter background. I like the other picture better. This one kind of strips a lot of the hue away from the blue. But again, nice job. Right? Using fewer colors, staging your blends between like 2 colors as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5, and all the glazing that we normally do works really, really well with more cartoony, models like this. It's one of the things that I struggle with when I want to try to ride that fine line between something like, say, the Nina model from Breath of Fire. It's an anime. It's like cell shaded. How do you want to create that on your palette when you're doing the colors, painting like I do? And so looking at the textures and figuring out, okay, does it lend itself towards more blending, more colors, or keep it simple like what you've done? And that keep it simple motto works fantastic. This model looks great. Black Wolf, Sister Gold. Oh, holy hell, look at that gold. And this thing is made out of gold, because whatever you've used here, that gold is fantastic. Look at that. Yeah, I would argue that this is like made out of gold. That gold spray that you've used is fantastic. That looks really, really good. Yep. Yep, that's a great gold. Great gold. And this is it. Metallic bright gold from Rust-Oleum. Nice. Very nice. You know, from Rust-Oleum, I'm surprised. Normally, I would see a lot more texture. I get a little bit over here, but that could very well be the model. That's good for Rust-Oleum. Rust-Oleum usually has a much heavier texture to it as it dries and cures. So I'm really a fan of what you got going on here. Good paint. Anybody that's looking to do, spray can basing for metallics, this looks like a winner. Especially for doing it quick. Love it. Afflicted finally finished up. Any thoughts? Overall pick one of two. You know, man, I've been digging your blacks and reds on these guys. I think they look great. Again, you got too much going on in the background. Try not to take pictures on stuff that has this kind of contrast on it because it makes it hard to visualize what's happening in as far as color. Like this leg falls into like almost utter blackness on the photo. But again, I'm not going to have any complaints. I like your red. All of your base colors are super solid. You're like one of the kings at making sure that your thickness is good. Your red looks like this was made out of red, right? You know, I'm not seeing a lot of brushstroke. I'm getting good dark shadows in the folds. I just can't tell the brightness. Have you gone and gotten yourself bright enough highlights on it? Because this is kind of washing it out. Let's see if the other picture is any better.
Somebody likes us.
That same thing. The contrast of the thing in the background is driving your darks down too much. Tuto, thank you for the follow. Welcome. I forgot Dano's model? Ray, what do you mean I forgot Dano's model? The icon top is weird. How can you make it better? How can you make the white better? Up here? One of the ways to make white better is to choose how you want your whites to go. You've got some, like here on the parchment, you've got it kind of coming up to white through bone. On this, I would choose more of a gray base. And you can go and glaze a little bit of a neutral gray on the shadow parts of the cross. And then the white will pop more, right? Because you can't, like at some point in time, highlighting white makes no sense because you can only go as bright as white, right? So you darken it up. So I would take this line that goes right across here on the bevel and then like the bottom one and just glaze in a little bit of neutral gray, very, very thin to darken it up. And then the rest of the white starts to pop. And you can edge highlight the outside of that darker area if you want to really spruce it up. That would work really well. Okay, so let me see. Somebody's bitching at me because they say I missed a model. Where did I miss a model? I think you guys are lying. Dano's model? Was this Dano's model? Dano, whip. Okay, this was here before we started the show, and generally I don't go back and look. So he uploaded this before the show. Thinking of calling him done. I dig it. These leathers look fantastic. Right? I might try to go a little bit brighter on the folds, like the creases of the leather cloak up here. Right? Maybe a little bit of extra highlight on some of the areas of the boot. But I like the color that you got going on. Not mad at that at all. The kind of reddish gun is a cool feature too. Yeah, I might just work a little bit on your value, right? I like the brightness of the top of the hood. Seems like I got a good brightness here as the hood flares back out and a good darkness and transition on the side. I want to see more of that across the whole shoulder area of the model, right? Brighten it up just a little bit across the top. Brighten up the shoulder a little bit, that kind of stuff. Top of the gun, top of the arm. Notice how this arm plate right here is a little deep, just like these down here. You've chosen a color, and I like the color for the armor plate, but you've lost value in here, right? Because the top of the thigh looks like the side of the leg, looks like the bicep, but the bicep's like directly in the light up here, so it would be lighter on the top. The top of the thigh would be a little bit lighter than the inside here of the calf. So just play around with values as you feel comfortable with it. The model looks great, so don't force yourself into something you're not comfortable with doing. But as you paint more of these, try going with, try to, brighten it up a little bit on these higher areas. But color choice is good. I'm digging it. Yeah, see, here I'm gathering a little bit more of what I'm talking about, right? So, I'm seeing a little bit more brightness on the top of the folds of the cloak, a little good darkness driving in down below. So just kind of play with this across all of these other colors. Like, so the green on the holster and all of that, just start finding ways to drag a little bit of highlight in to distinguish all those details. A good choice. And this is a great model. This is one of the new Hakazan ones. Haha. Yeah, Dano. Yeah, just FYI, I always start. Generally on Wednesdays, I wipe the whole thing right before the show starts. Like 10 minutes before the show starts, I delete everything out of Whip Gallery. So don't ever upload photos you want me to look at until the show has already started. Right? Just an FYI. Every Wednesday during that warm-up time where the starting in 10 minutes kind of pre-show thing goes on, I'm busy deleting all of the Whip Gallery. Literally. Every now and then I'll look and I'll see, oh, this one got uploaded 15 minutes ago, and I'll keep it. But most of the time I'm flying by wire, and I just delete them all right before the show. Because we're doing the paint along, I left them all, so it's all good. Don't worry about it. But just remember, don't usually upload until the show has started. All right, where were we? I got Black Templar dudes. What was this? What was this? Look at this crazy guy in the background. I like this, though. Day2 watching some sexy guy paint while you work on an Inquisitor. Custom trophy for a 40K event. Fantastic, dude. Hell yeah. I love this model, by the way. The old Inquisitor henchman with the plasma gun. I like this guy so much. Good work. This is looking really good. I like the red. I like the blue glow on the plasma gun, too. Nice. And I like the plinth he got him on, too. It looked, you know, it looks like a ball of thread almost. Or a thread spindle. Spool of thread. Whatever the hell that is. I like it. Good stuff. And good on you for making custom trophies for tournaments. That's awesome. Afflicted, back in the game. Holy hell, here come the Marines. Lots of Marines. Lots of Templar. Here's the close-up for Day2. Oh, goddamn, scroll wheel. Please. Scroll wheel, why you hate me? Yeah. See, I'm really digging this. You could go a little bit brighter on the glow of the top coils of this, but again, depending on how bright you really want it. This works if it's like, you know, in that kind of, you know, low power waiting to be used mode. I dig that. The reds are looking really good. I can see the pop on the folds coming out of the underarm there. Top of the collar here is really good. Dark down here as you get into the shaded side. Good use of value like we're talking about right around in here. Side of the face, darker on this side. You've chosen this side of the model to kind of fall into shadow. I really dig it. Good work. Good work on a great model. Holy hell, Afflicted got them wicks and some sick stickers. I love it. Let us know what you think of them. As you start using it, give them feedback. We're trying to make sure we keep these brushes right in the wheelhouse for value and quality. So if you find anything you absolutely love, make sure you tell us so we don't change it. Find something you absolutely hate, tell us so we do change it. That's what we're working on. We want to be able to reiterate these products that we release every single chance we get to make sure that we keep them, you know, doing what people want them to do. So feedback is always welcome. And you're going to love the Abteilung brush conditioner. Great stuff. And thank you for the support. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He bought those at slowfusegaming.com, just in case you didn't know. Ray Silver, we already looked at these. Let's go and find the other non-paint-along models real quick. Ding, 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 ding. Maui Blood. The two flesh areas, shoulder and belly, look off to you. Any advice? How to drop lighting so the belly wasn't washed out? Yeah, because this is going to saturate on the camera. So this area up here, and you're just saying they look off. This one, because there's not a whole lot of contrast on it, is going to look a little weird with the guts, right? Because you've gone with this blue-gray. So it is a bright color that saturates both not only in light, but to your eye. Your eye is going to just kind of blend that hue together. So you have to try harder for shading. And sometimes the best way to do that is to bring some other colors into it. You got a ton of blues, grays, and purples on this model. So if I were going to highlight this stuff on top of that blue-gray, as weird as it sounds, I might go in with, you know, maybe some, let's see, maybe some dark greens. I know you've got some purple in there. It's a tough call, man, because you've got some green here on the armor. So I don't know that you want to pull that together. Maybe some more pink. You know, maybe going into the kind of magenta hue as opposed to the dark purple would help. Pull it out. You don't want to make it look too pink, you know, like, you know, Care Bear pink or something like that. But you might try some other hue in there to just make it to where it doesn't all desaturate or oversaturate into just this kind of, you know, bright exterior spaceship like color gray. That's the only thing I can think for the color that you've chosen on these guts to really kind of help you. See, I think this would be better if you did this color on it, right? Because this shoulder flesh right here is grotesque, right? It has that flesh color, so when my eyes look at it, the first thing I want to think of is flesh, and then the first thing I want to say, no, that can't possibly be flesh because it's so disgusting. But that's the effect you want. So I'm thinking this down here would solve all your problems. This just doesn't look right to me. It's not that the color's bad, it's just not in tune with everything else you got going on. The model's grotesque. It's so changed and demonic, and then you got this weird bright gray. Kind of doesn't work. So maybe that. Because this I like. And I think this is just throwing off because this doesn't fit. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think that your brain is just having a hard time judging all this together like mine is. Nothing's wrong with any of them individually. Just as a cohesive unit, this one, it's like one of these things is not like the other, and it's this. Right? It would look good on another model where these weren't your color choices. I think I would take this flesh color down here. Done deal. Then it starts to really come together. And my eye recognizes what's going on. You know, warped flesh and guts and warped flesh and guts. It just starts making sense. Good stuff, though, man. That model's over the top. It looks awesome. All right, let's go back and dig through and find some more. Oh, this guy. Naked Puzzle Basement, Arena Rex whip. So I think he's lying. I'm just saying. I think he's making fun of this guy. Not nice, Uncle Touchy. Not nice. And I think you got a little bit of control work to do, right? You got a little bit of sloppiness, right? This is a little one of those thin your paints memes. But overall, not bad. Not bad. Everybody has to start someplace. I think let's get some hype in the channel for Uncle Touchy trying. He's getting there. And my apologies if that happens to be your model and Uncle Touchy just played the jerk face and made fun of it. That is not Uncle Touchy's painting, by the way. Just saying. Here's some of Uncle Touchy's painting coming up. Thorin White Wolf. First crack at non-metallic metal gold. Only half done so far. Is the purple okay? I think the purple is okay. You're saying non-metallic metal gold, and I'm not seeing gold. So you're throwing me there. Is that what this is going to be, is gold eventually? Because right now I'm seeing silver. That's still looking good. But the purples are looking really good. I like the purple a lot. Nothing wrong with that at all. If this is the basis for your gold and you're going to work it up after because this is just like a pre-highlight, then I like that because you're getting kind of a metallic on there. I'm just not seeing the gold. Might just be the photo. But the purple looks really good. Houdini 7, last photo. Nailing it. Yeah, I'm digging it. I can see all the stages of what you got going on here and it's working really well. The only thing I hope is that all of you guys working on the paint along are as psyched about it as I am, because seeing your work, if you're feeling like half as fulfilled about it as I'm feeling about your work, then you're on the right. I know everybody's super critical of their own work, but you guys are all nailing it. Great stuff. Here's Naked Puzzle Basement. Here he is actually showing off what he's painting. Arena Rex finished cup shot. Cup shot, look at this. So he, I don't think this was connected to the model when he was here painting. If it was, we didn't spend time on it. We were talking about more about the shine and getting the reflection kind of stuff going good on the gold shield and on the helm. But you've nailed it, right? So this right here, the only thing I would say, go a little bit brighter right across the top of this sheen, right? Push it up if you've got that ivory or white to blend in with your brightest yellow, and just do a little bit of blend and catch it. Don't paint a straight line, but just go in here and give yourself a rough because it's got that texture, and go give me a little bit of a brighter, just like we did here, right? Because we added these bright tops to all of your shine reflective spots. Same thing here. I just want to see it go a little bit brighter across here, man. This is looking fantastic, though. This is Uncle Touchy's first stab at non-metallics, and he's really doing well. He's at that same spot where there's a fear, there's an innate fear with painting of going that bright, because there's not many times when we're painting that we're like, oh God, I don't want to put that bright of a paint next to that dark of a paint. But with metallics, that's what you have to do. You've got to separate this shine out by making it really, really bright to really, really dark. But your setup is perfect here on the crotch shot. Absolutely perfect with the shadow and everything. Great job. These are Jen's models. This is what Jen's going to be kicking my ass with on Sunday, by the way. Look at the helm. Nailed the helm, although I think I did that. Did I paint this? If I painted this, then I did a great job. I don't remember which one of these I painted. Did I paint this side? Uncle Touchy probably painted that side. We're going to go with Uncle Touchy. Nailed it. Looking really, really good. This is great. Skin tone is very great. Everything's come out great on these guys. Really cool. Great job. Nicholas 314. Oh, hell yeah, Nicholas. Progress after Tuesday's VOD. Feel like you went a little heavy on the tanned flesh? I don't feel so like at all. I'm liking the shadow. I think what you'll find is that after following up with today's stuff, Nicholas, that you'll get the greens and the pinks will start glazing in on there, and your shadows may be a little dark right here, but don't worry about it until you start with the greens and the wasteland soils in there to get the pinkish in. If you still feel like you're a little heavy in those dark areas, then you can go back in and glaze a little bit of the brighter flesh tone over it, or a little bit more of the tan flesh over it will brighten it up a bit. But wait, I wouldn't pass judgment on it yet, because I'm liking what I'm seeing here. Just go very, very light with the green and the wasteland soil. So the green has the ability to darken this up even more, which you want to stay away from. So just go very, very light through here, and then judge it and see. Looking great, though, man. Great job. He did all this watching from the VOD. Awesome stuff. That's a repeat. There we go. Butt shot. Little dark right here, I can see. Right, the bicep going here, although that might be shadow of the model in the photo, right? So you could brighten up just a little bit so that you're just leaving shadow at the culmination point of the bicep going into the tricep here, right? Then you can just kind of go through and brighten it up just a little on the bottom. But I'm liking what I'm seeing here. Great job. Great job. Dealer Death, blocking in other colors before edge highlighting and glazing. These are looking great, man. You don't need any more comment from me. I'm already blown away because I love your metallic quartering. The red with the metallic black is fantastic. I don't care what you do with the rest of the model so long as you didn't turn the guns green. These are going to be great. I know I'm horrible. You're like, no, I'm looking for help. And I'm like, you don't need help. This is awesome. All you got to do is quarter them like this. Sold. I dig it. I probably want to see a little bit of value on the red. The red is fairly one-dimensional as it goes down the body, whereas the metallic is going to naturally give itself value because of the reflective light in the room. So that's the fight. Notice how you've got all this really good reflective light happening because of the metallic paint, and then on the red it looks dull. So you're going to have to play with the red and force highlights onto it. And I know you say you're before edge highlighting and glazing, but maybe go in and figure out how you're going to brighten up the top edges of your red so that it balances out a little bit more with the metallic. The colors work great together, but the red, if it stays this dull, the metallic is going to overtake it. So you want to kind of find a way to work that in beyond just edge highlighting. You're going to want a little bit of brighter red, kind of on the top of the shoulder, top of the helm, top of the backpack, stuff like that. Other than that, there's nothing really to talk about. These are great. Great. Holy hell, what is this? I want one. Zulujaji, hardest name on the internet to say. Hope I'm not screwing it up. Super Dungeon Explorer Dragon Blade. Still need top coat, but satisfied overall. I just want this model. I need to order one of these models because it's just cool. This is the kind of stuff I put in the mystery boxes because I'm like, ooh. I just like this model a lot, man. This is awesome. Chibi Dragon Knight. Great job. Great job. Love the blues on the cloak. Really, really good. The red underneath is great. I would maybe, I don't know, I would say I would darken up the red a little bit just because it's on the underneath of a cloak that's already dark on top, so it gives it a weird kind of contrast with the bottom being brighter than the top, but I don't know, it works really well. It looks so great because the miniature is cartoony, so I don't know that I'd change it at all, right? And again, the only thing I always say is that as I'm looking at the model, I'm having a hard time finding value on it. This turquoise, teal, jade, whatever color it is that you've got going on is fantastic. I find myself wanting the top of this head to be a little bit brighter than the jaw. Top of the glove to be a little bit brighter, right? Outstep of the boot. Things like that. But again, I'm always like, do only what you're comfortable with, and you've already nailed it. This model's amazing. So you've done a great job on it so far. Great stuff. Love the armor choice. That color's fantastic. I've been playing around a lot with jades and stuff and really liking the outcome. Random Griffin in Zinch colors by Soup Ninja. I ain't mad at this at all. This is a great model, by the way. I like it. I like it. Again, playing with that jade, turquoise into magenta and then into kind of purple blue. Works really well. Works really well. I like it. Dry brushing, bringing out the texture again. I like it a lot. That's a fun model. Good color choice. Oh yeah, from the back. I like that a lot. Okay, so here, it looks to me like you've dry brushed with the jade or the teal up into the magenta, and then the magenta up into the purple, and then maybe the purple up into the blue. Something that I would tend to say here is that I would have gone the other direction with the highlighting. I would have gone blue into purple, purple into magenta, magenta into green. And the only reason is that because you've chosen to go lighter colors into darker colors, and so it can act sort of like a highlight. It starts to look like a glow when you do it that way. As opposed to the other direction where you go, the only light color into dark you would have is that blue into the purple. But then purple, you'd go dark into light, and the magenta, you'd go technically darker into lighter. Even though those values are almost the same, it's going to give you the feel of darker into lighter. That tends to give you kind of a really cool overlapping shadow effect. That's the only thing that I would critique this on, though, is that by choosing your light colors over dark, you've given it a weird glow highlight on it that's kind of hard to discern what's happening. But you're already to the point where changing it, I think, is too big of a stretch, and it looks good, right? I would just say if you do things like this the next time, play with going dark colors blended into the light colors. Try to reverse it. I think you'll be happier with the way that creates a neat shading effect, so it gives you the feel of overlap. Whereas here, I lose that overlapping feel because technically those jade feathers are underneath the magenta, and then you're lapping that jade up over the top. And so the eye, again, has a hard time saying what's really going on. You know, where's my layering happening here? You've just kind of reversed it. It looks good. I'm not going to complain because the colors are good. It just gives you a little bit of that feeling. So, you know, maybe think about that as you go in and paint other things like along this style. But I don't know that I would change the model. An effect like the wings would be changing colors? Yeah, definitely. And it would do it the other way. It's just kind of, it's one of those odd things where nothing's wrong with your technique, nothing's wrong with your color choice. It's one of those moments where the brain can't really wrap around why things are like they are. It's not that it's wrong. It's just something that we're not used to. And I say this all the time. It's not that we're dealing with fantasy, right? It's a griffin, for Christ's sakes. It doesn't exist. So our brain's always going to be like, what the am I looking at? It's a fantasy creature. So for some people, they're going to look at it and go, what the hell is that? But when you look at color, your brain has a natural tendency, when combined with the eyes and the other senses, to recognize certain things. You know, you blindfold yourself and sniff, and you're going to recognize certain smells and be able to identify what they are. Somebody takes a blindfold off, and you smelled chocolate chip cookies. They take the blindfold off, and they show you cabbage, and you're like, holy hell, cabbage smells like chocolate chip cookies, right? I don't know that that's really the way that works, but you get my drift. And so you have certain pathways that are already written. And so when we look at something, it can create that, I don't know what's wrong, but something's not jiving, you know? And I think that that's what we're talking about here. Technique is good, the dry brushing is good, the color choice is good, it's just the overlapping of the colors is kind of reverse what the brain expects, and so it causes you a little bit more thinking to transition into. But other than that, good stuff. The color choice is amazing. And the skin, along with the skin tone, spot on, man, I love it. All right, we will come back. We got to get some more painting done. It's almost 5 o'clock already. Are you kidding me? Is that where we're going to stop? Is that how we're going to end the day? I feel like it can't be. Is it really 5 o'clock? Is it literally 5 o'clock? Robo Whale, I'm glad you think so. We really try. I hope that it always comes across. I never really talk about this, you know, every now and then I'll say one of these things, because sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not trying to be harsh with the criticism. I hope that comes across, right? I hope that when I look at the positive, constructive criticism that I'm giving out, that I'm really looking at it from a standpoint of everyone's individual progress on their models, that the way I'm seeing it. If you have a story you're trying to tell specifically, right? Like Soup Ninja just said, he's trying to make it seem like the wings are, you know, amorphous, like Zinch, like they're changing, like those colors could rotate to anywhere on that wing. What's magenta now could be purple tomorrow. And to create that story, he's done the right thing. He started overlapping those colors and he's telling a story. So you always have the right to kick me in the nuts and say, no, man, I was going for this, right? But what I'm trying to do is just kind of tell you and give you the explanations of not only how painting works, but why our brain registers certain things. Because we're always painting, and first and foremost, I feel like we're painting for ourselves, because it's a very, it's a very personal engagement when you buy models, paint models, play models on the table. But part of the socialization of them is that feedback that we get. And so when you put a model out on the table with your army and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna kick your ass with this model I got, and look, I painted it. You wanna make sure that without too much explanation, the other person goes, holy hell, that's awesome. Right? And so I'm trying to also guide you with the kind of whys about things, and that's why we'll spend 30 minutes talking about concrete and why concrete looks the way it does and things like that. So that your brain starts wrapping around the fact that when you're painting, it's not just about color choice, it's about why, right? It's about why texture, why color, why value, so that you explain less. You just put your stuff. Because the best thing in the world is when you put your army down and you walk away. And everybody behind you is staring at your army. And they're like, oh my God, look at that. Look what he did there. It's the coolest thing, coolest feeling in the world, right? And that's not why all of us paint, but it's definitely an additive to why we paint, right? You may not take your armies out very often at all, right? You may only let them get seen by people that come over to your house and see them in the racks that you have. Doesn't matter. We all love that feeling. And so part of the hurdle of making sure you get that feeling are the things that we talk about here. So hopefully that all comes through. Exactly, ready to roll. Exactly. Soup Ninja, yeah, just try it. One of the things is if you take what I'm doing and you paint thin and you layer thin, even when you're dry brushing, just dry brush in thin layers, then you'll notice that as soon as you put it on, if you don't like it, you can fix it real quick. You're never at a point where, hopefully, as you learn, that you're never at a point where you're like, oh, damn it, throw that in simple green. People ask me what's the best stuff to strip models, and I go, I never strip models, but I mess up all the time, right? But when you paint like I do, you have a fearlessness, you're always going to run into situations where you're like, don't like that at all. And you're like, but don't strip the model. Paint it in a way that you never have to strip. You can always go back and just put another little thin coat. Like in your case, you could put another little thin coat of purple and then dry brush it the other way. And fine, done. And it looks exactly the way you want it. But always try those things. Try new stuff, coloring, layering, things like that. Burges, welcome. Thank you for that follow. CreatureCast says, you think for you, there's also a huge value in not being afraid to try new things. Exactly. That's the thing is, and we say fearlessness. You may look at a color that I do and say, I don't, like a lot of people, when I do one-on-one tutorials, they're like, what do you mean we're going to use green next on skin? And I'm like, oh, trust me. A lot of people are like, I'm not trying to paint it like it's dead. I'm like, I know, I get it. Just trust me. There's a feeling of trust in fearlessness, and you got to trust yourself, to be able to say, okay, I know I can fix anything. That's kind of the way I attack it. I know I can fix anything. If I'm like, it totally looks screwy, I can fix it. I can put it in the garbage and start from scratch. I'm kidding, but you get my drift, right? There's that confidence that you can go in and you can fix whatever problem you create, because I've built all of my techniques on making sure that I can fix them. Because as a kid painting, I'm ancient, remember? As a kid, we painted with enamels. You can't fix enamels. Like literally, you get one try. And then if it's wrong, you just put that at the back. You're just like, yeah, that guy is at the back of the squad. Yeah. And then you paint another guy that you put in front of him. That's just kind of the way it worked. Because you can't fix enamels, man. They're thick. You ain't going to get them off the model without melting the model down, whether it's metal or plastic. It's just not a thing. Or scrape it off, with a knife. Not a thing, right? So you didn't have those. So I learned these techniques kind of by survival method. I'm like, holy shit, if I'm going to make sure that I can fix my mistakes, I got to paint thin. And with enamels, it was tough. It wasn't until I started painting with oils and acrylics that you could really get into thinning and playing around with it. And that was years of just practicing and trying. Enamels, you're screwed. So just don't use enamels. Well, you kind of did it as a survival mechanism, because as a kid and not having money to go buy new models, you couldn't afford to mess up the model. But you wanted to paint it. And I didn't have technique. And so that's what I'm trying to impart upon people is that just, this model is the only model you want to buy this month. That's great. You can still treat it fearlessly. Paint thin, because then your confidence goes up. You make a mistake and you can fix it instantly, right? As a matter of fact, before we get out of here, let's do that. My muscle tones are too dark right in here by my bicep transition and the out and the inside of the elbow here. Because it's facing up towards the light, this is just too dark, right? I need to get rid of some of that shadow. So I've made a mistake in my value settings here with my muscle tone in between the bicep being too dark, too much green, and too dark up through the inside of the elbow. So I need to fix that. So let's do it. Let's talk. Let's put our money where our mouth is, and let's show you what you got to do to fix it. In this case, I know that the darkest color of flesh, or the color of flesh that's in the area that I need to fix, is my tanned skin, or my tanned, not fur brown, tanned flesh. Tanned flesh is what we've been using. So I'm going to take the same color that I started with that was in those areas, all right? And so you that are following along at home, same thing that you'll do to fix yours. You'll just pick whichever color of skin it was that the area in question was supposed to be, right? And I'll just go in very, very thin again, like I do, right? Super thin with the tan flesh. And now what I'm going to do is glaze the lighter color. Where are my glasses? Old man's like, where are my glasses? All right, and I'm going to go in here and just give it a little bit through that shadow. This is that fearlessness, right? I'm never afraid, man. We'll go back in, we'll fix whatever problems we create. I ain't even worried about it. Notice how just like before, very, very little paint coming off the brush at all. Right? I don't want it to turn total skin color, right? I want to lighten it up a bit. Right? Now I'm happier with that shadow that's in there. Back this out a little bit so I'm not so out of focus with put my brush in there. All right, so much better there. Still keep the definition on the muscle. But again, doing that balancing act with skin tones.
And maybe it'll make you feel better.
Ah! Twinner! Holy hell, what's going on, my friend? I still want a little bit more brightness right through there. Like so. Now that's what I want. Right? I want the darker section to come as it drops into the underarm, but it was just too dark right underneath the muscle like that. Right? So now you just blend it back in. And good. I can't tell that I just painted a big stripe of paint in there, right? Because that's not how I attacked it. Same thing over on this side. See how I'm dark right in there on the inside? It's because I think the model's got a little bit of a rift in it right there that paint's just not liking. So I'm going to go in and lighten this up by kind of stippling, right? I'm just poking the brush in there so that the shape of the model I can kind of overcome, because I think that's what's happening right here. Yeah, see, it's not really... There's a little ledge in the sculpt right there.
Buddy, one of my favorite streamers.
Thank you, my friend. That means the world. All right, so let's get in here. And again, just kind of poke the brush in there to load up some color where I need it. And sink those shadows under flesh tone. Right? And stroke by stroke, stipple by stipple, it'll start to brighten up. But because we're not going in with opaque paint, it won't cover up that green or that red that I've put in there 100%. Right? As opposed to, you can imagine, like if you just go and paint this area back over and start from scratch, that's a hell of a deal. Here, we're just going in and layering up like we did everywhere else. We're just doing it with a lighter color now. And just following right in that shade line. Poking a little paint in there. Letting it build up. Bingo. Right? Notice how it's getting lighter and lighter every stroke I take. And we're getting really, really close to the way I want it. Still a little dark. Consider, and the whole reason I'm saying it's dark is because remember, our light's coming from up above on this. Right? So I don't want there to be as huge a transition of darkness on the inside of the elbow. I want it a little bit dark, but not too much. But notice how I'm not killing our green. I'm not killing our pink tone there. I might have to go and layer them up a little bit after I get done, but not too much. A little bit more paint off my palette over here. Notice how I'm taking most of the paint off of my brush onto my thumb, so that when I go to the model, I'm not risking a big, huge swath of flesh tone. Right? I barely have any paint left on the brush at all. So that ensures that I can't mess much up. And again, just kind of stipple, just kind of take the point of the brush and pop it in there randomly. Bingo. Right? And now, that's about how I want it. So I've lost that real dark spot, but I haven't lost any of the transition because, again, working thin. I keep my definition between my muscles the way I want, right? I've just now, my shadow is more in tune with how I expect it to be, given that the light is hitting that part of the model, right? So it's always fixable. Everything is fixable. Just bring a little bit more color in. Right? There's a spot right here. You can see where it looks like not much color at all hit when we were doing the flesh. A little bit of line of black right at the wrist. So I'm just going to fix that real quick. Again, take most of the paint off the brush. And then just kind of stipple some color back up in there. Bingo. And if what happens is you're doing this and say you lose a little bit of your pink, let's say, right? So you put a little bit of flesh tone in your wasteland soil, the pink that we're using to get that kind of, blood vessel feel on the skin. Let's say you put too much, or you didn't put too much, but just the action of putting that flesh tone on there to correct your value in the armpit like that took away a little bit of the pink. So now you can just come right back in, zoom in, right? Because I lost a little bit right here on the inside of the elbow because now it's all overtaken with flesh. Let's just go in and we'll push a little bit of pink. Right in along the tip of the muscle, right into the inside of the bend of the elbow there. Right? Super easy fix. Right? Didn't take a lot of effort. Same technique we've been using. Nothing changed. Just basically being able to erase any problem you run up against because you're using thin paint. Right, so there. So now I've got the blood that is evident from the thin, tough skin of the inside of the elbow like that. So my hues are back on the model the way that I want them. Zoom out a little bit. It has a little bit of trouble focusing like that, right? Still got my shadow where I need it. But I lightened that whole area up without having to repaint the whole arm. Again, I can't be repetitive enough. Painting thin, using these techniques that I'm showing you, allows us to be fearless, right? Because I know I can fix anything. All I got to do is put a little bit more paint. And you paint overly thin, so you can put a little bit on there, see if it fixes it. No, a little bit more. Still fixes it? No, a little bit more. Fixes it? Great. Too much? Great. Put a little bit of dark back in there. A little bit of the green back in there to darken it up. Fixes it? No, a little bit more. See what I'm saying? You always just add a little bit. And we're never putting so much paint on the model that we're risking losing detail. Because literally right now, if we could get like a micrometer that would measure the thickness of paint on the model, it's nothing right now. Literally, we haven't hardly put any paint at all on this model. But because of the way we're layering, we're getting the colors and the values and the hues that we want without ever worrying about covering details up. I get people that are like, oh, how do I do this? Do I have to strip it? No, just go very thin over the top of it. You're always good to kind of risk that. So play with colors. Put a color on there that you're maybe not comfortable with and see what you like. And if you like it, then go with it. If you don't, cover it back up. Nice, Maui Blood. Acetone fixes enamels. Yeah, that's true. I just hate using it. Twinner, you put something up and whip? Holy hell, we'll take one more look before we end out the stream. Will Vegas, welcome back, man. Jacket Clubs, how you doing, brother? You home? Yep, Twinner took a one-on-one tutorial with us where we did some airbrushing of tanks, and it upped his game immediately. Thanks for the shout-out on that one, Twinner. Yeah, if you're ever interested, we do one-on-one tutorials. Literally, personalized tutorials. You tell me what you're working on, what you want to paint. You go to the store, sold by the hour. You can pick 1 hour, 2 hour blocks, book it out on the calendar. You can sit with me as if you want to spend more time with me, right? Me and my ugly mug, and we'll paint exactly what you want to paint. Snipe, still having issues uploading to the whip? Okay, emailed me? Good. I'll take a look. Yeah, I don't have email on this machine, so I can't look at it right now, but I'll definitely bring it up, and I'll answer you back for sure. Faux show. All right, so that looks like it. I can't believe that we're really already at 5 o'clock. I feel like that was too little bit of time for today, but I feel like what we got accomplished today was really good. The colors that we got on the model were great. We went through again just to wrap up, and on top of the flesh tones that we used from yesterday, which was tan flesh, or I always keep, why did I have fur brown out here? I showed somebody fur brown earlier. Tan flesh, barbarian flesh, right? We worked up to our highlight. Then today we came back in and we put the cam dark green and the wasteland soil over that to get those natural colors in there, right? Building up our shadows, getting our kind of, blood style pink in the knuckles, pink underneath the throat, things like that, all right? So that we get really nice hue build up on the model. Right down here, this arm's looking really good. You can catch a little bit of that pink and red for the blood and the green up underneath in the shadows. That's what we're going for, right? Keeping that muscle texture there. The tone on the thighs and all that's looking good. Just enough pink to make it look human. All right? So that's what we worked on today. I feel like we've nailed the flesh. I feel like everybody's whip that they've showed us on working on it is going great. We didn't get to start armor, so we will start armor on Friday, 5 p.m. We'll be going through the paint along again, and we'll start working on all the non-metallic parts. It means that we are going to drive the paint along into next week as well. We'll be working a little bit on the cloak, showing you techniques for how to do the textures on all of the cloth, because he's got a lot in the cloak and robe. But on Friday, what we'll be doing is working on the metallics, and our color palette for the metallics is going to be the Parasite Brown, the Plague Brown, our Golden Yellow, and our Ivory for your highlight. And all of that, I got to start with Burnt Umber. We got Burnt Umber as our base. And we're going to try something new, which is going to be bringing in some light green RLM, the 25 from Model Air, which is a great color for tarnish on the top of brass. And what we're going to be doing is using these colors, and much like I talked about with Flesh, we're actually going to be using more of these three than the two darker ones, so that we can push it into kind of a polished bronze, not quite to silver. As you polish bronze, it goes through a stage where it looks like copper, and then you polish it more, it starts looking like gold, and then you polish it more, and you can actually get it to a point where it almost turns white, depending on the polishing compound that you use. The picture on the box art looks a little bit like that, like they've polished the bronze to almost a silvery white. We're not going to do that because it interferes too much with the flesh tone. Looks good in 2 dimensions, not so much on 3 dimensions. So we're going to go with a little bit more of the yellow bronze as it falls into that range of kind of copper color. So we're going to go with that, and then we're just going to use it with a real high sheen to it. But we are going to put a little bit of the tarnish as if it's been used quite a bit, and when they polish it, they only get the top side. So the shadows are going to have a little bit of this green dumped into it. And we are picking a brighter color than normal because it's going to give it a really cool kind of character on it. So that's what we'll be working on Friday. Going to be good times. I'm excited to get this armor going. It's the first time for a lot of the people doing the paint along with us actually doing non-metallic metal, so it should be good times. Hopefully nobody has a heart attack and gives up. I'm going to do it in a way that allows everybody to, like we've done with the Flesh, you guys have knocked it out of the park. I hope that everybody in chat recognizes as we went through the whip how good these guys and girls have been doing with the paint along. Every single one of them has knocked it out of the park with the Flesh. The non-metallic metal is going to be exactly the same. Might be a little bit more of a struggle for people to wrap their head around it, but we're going to force them kicking and screaming to learn some really cool stuff. It's going to be awesome. I get prettier after a mule or two, says Uncle Touchy. You said I was pretty to my face the other day, and you weren't even drinking. I'm going to cry. Houdini's all worried about it. He's like, yeah, non-metallic metal. Loving it. Ray Silver says he's going to drink heavily before so he can try to eliminate the melodramatic tendencies. We're all going to come inebriated on Friday. It's going to be inebriated gladiator painting on Friday as we go into non-metallic metal armor. Should be great. Should be wonderful times. Horrible jokes ensue. Houdini7 says, this is the first Flesh you've ever painted? You are a lying liar who lies, Houdini7, because you nailed it. You've literally nailed it. Let's go back to the whip. I know that a couple of people said they updated and uploaded stuff. So I'm going to jump back over real quick before we end. It is 5:12. We got to toss it over to Key. I think Key's streaming. He was gone last week, but I think he's back. So I don't want to keep him waiting too long. Oh, yeah, we got some stuff over here. But Houdini, this was Houdini, right? Nicholas, that's Nicholas. Where's Houdini? I'm going to call you a lying liar who lies, because here he is. Houdini7 says this is the first skin he's ever painted. Can we all get a big lying liar who lies in chat, please? I want to see some lying. RB Shot, what's going on, man? Good to see you. A few beers relaxes and steadies the brush. I get a little too free willy with my freaking paint strokes when I drink. So when I drink on Fridays, if you notice, I don't know. We've done some non-metallic on Fridays though. I try to make it seem like I know what I'm doing when I'm drinking, but it's always a toss-up as to whether or not it comes out right. Houdini is a lying liar who lies. Well, if this is the first Flesh you've ever painted, then either I am a spectacular teacher or you're a lying liar who lies. Like, legit, you've nailed it. Knocked it out of the park, my friend. So good on you. This is the kind of fearlessness we need in painting, right? Because you've just taken what I've told you and you've applied it to the model and it looks great. You should be really, really proud if this is legit like some of the first flesh you've tackled. Great job, Houdini. Great job. Nailed it. All right, let's take a look at these final whips and get the hell out of Dodge. Bam! Cloak with stars. Dragoran, High Elf Mage Cloak. Freaking love it. Freaking love it. This is awesome. This is awesome. You know what? I can see the masking that you did as you sprayed this, and I'm not even mad at the harsh line on it. It gives it kind of a really cool, I don't know what I would call this. You know, if there were more of the hard lines, it would be almost like a kaleidoscopic effect. I'm not even mad at it. This blend, the nebula effect that you got going is very subtle and nice. Really, really cool. The stars are great, you know. I prefer it done like this than when you paint the big glowing plus signs on it. I don't know if you're going to do that. Be very careful as you do. Don't use the same bright white. Use a really dull white if you're going to do the shine glow on some of these stars. It can look good on a couple of them. But sometimes people use the same bright white and it literally looks like plus signs. So be careful, because this right here looks fantastic. Real subtle star field in the background. A lot of patience applied here, man. Great looking cloak. Great looking star field. Yeah, this is awesome. I love it. I love it. I love the back of this too. Is this is this like behind his head? Is that what this is? Like a cowl or something? I really dig what you've done painting the texture on here, like almost like plush. Tuck and roll? No, not tuck and roll. You know what I'm talking about. It's like in Italian restaurants. I like that. Great work. Great work. Twinner, nailing it. Look at the headlights, man. Really nice glow on the headlights. Right? These are looking really good. This is what he came in. He was like painting a bunch of tanks. And we did a one-on-one, and he's upped his paint game on the tanks. He's looked fantastic, man. Really good looking tanks. On the headlights, I would push it a little bit brighter on the headlight part. Like, you know, go to add whatever this bright yellow is that you've got, add some white to it to the point where it's like, you know, nearing pure white, and then hit the headlights inside so that you get the feel that this is light. Right now, it looks like they're kind of just spitting paint out because it's all one color. Unless it's oversaturated, but I feel like you want to go brighter right on the headlights. And that solves that issue. But the rest of this, fantastic, man. Great job. Yeah, great. Really good. Weathering down low, the dirt, and the feathering of the paint, so you're brighter up top. You've nailed it, man. You've gotten so much better even since our tutorial. This is a man that took it, learned it, and put it to action. Love it. Everything's looking spectacular on these, man. I love the scheme, too. The blue and red is good. Yeah, blue and red is really good. Yeah, because this darker yellow is that outer glow that you want. You want to pin it up and oversaturate the middle of it with a white, you know, a whitish yellow in here, and then maybe pinpoint white just right around the cage of the headlights. You can outline with a brush, just kind of hit the edges of the cage with a bright white, and then the white yellow underneath that, and then this dark yellow gives you a nice glow. That's what sets up an OSL. As the light feathers out, it gets actually darker, if that makes sense. Sort of. Right? This is good. Awesome stuff. What am I looking at? Zeb Zorander, I recognize these. Lizard Man shields. Feathers are sculpted really thick. Should you paint them as gold decorations or actual feathers? Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, just as they're on there, their thickness in plastic is a little weird, right? I don't know. I'd paint them as regular feathers. That's just the GW way. I would use them as regular feathers, though. I love those shields, though. Looking great. All right, that's it for us today. Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Didn't get quite as much finish as I wanted to. I feel like we got a lot of teaching done today, though. So a lot of really good stuff. We're noticing it through the paint that everybody else is showing us. Everything's looking fantastic. We're going to attack the armor and the non-metallic, which is pretty much the bulk of the rest of this guy's model. We've got the chest, the shoulder plate, the armband, the helm, and the face are all going to be non-metallic, as well as the shin plate on the right shin. So we're going to dig in and try to really go balls to the wall on Friday. We don't have anybody that follows us on Friday, so if you've got the time on Friday evening, we're probably going to push a little long. But don't worry, if you don't, you can watch the VOD, pick up what you miss later on, but I might just push on into the night on Friday so we can get a little bit more work done before the week. Remember that we are going to be playing Arena Rex. We'll be talking a lot about it on Friday. Jen will be here with us on Friday. Jen's going to be playing Arena Rex. She's playing the Morituri faction that Uncle Touchy is painting up. You've seen the work that he's been doing with the Egyptians. Great stuff. I've got the rest of the faction, which is what the guys are that you're seeing here that I'm painting up for the Ludus Magnus stuff. So we're just playing the basic starter boxes of Ludus Magnus and Morituri against one another. We've got the mats by Mars. They sent us the mat for the Arena Rex that has the arena. We've got some stuff coming that should be really, really cool. Hopefully we'll have all that by Sunday. I'm crossing my fingers that the mat gets here. But either way, we're going to have a really good setup, and we're going to get to some real fun going through the rules and playing with Jen. Jen doesn't play miniature games very often, so this is a big event, and we're hoping that she really wraps herself around the Arena Rex and digs it, because it's a good, simple basis of rules, but really expansive ability for tactics, right? The things you can do and the way you have to do them and the order you have to do them can really press it to being a thinking man's game, but also at the root of it, it's very simple. Not a lot of rules to have to comprehend. You've got a fatigue system, and then you've got combat. So you move, you fight, you get tired, but the tired part really forces it to be something else. Elric, with a resub 2 months in a row, my friend. Thank you very much. So good stuff, and a lot of you guys have been getting rules for Arena Rex and your mystery boxes and things like that as we've been sending them out, so hopefully that's getting you pumped. But make sure that you set aside time both Friday night to continue on with our paint-along and Sunday to watch the game get played live between Jen and myself. It will be fun no matter what, because it's also Jen's birthday. So the unicorn is 1 year younger on Sunday, and she's playing Arena Rex with us. Cha-ching, wins all the way around. Thank you, guys. Love your faces for hanging out with us. Great work, as always, in the Whip Gallery for a Wednesday. Looking forward to carrying it on Friday, 5 p.m. Let's go turn it over to Key right now. Let's raid him. Thank you for all the follows. If you've been lurking in the background, punch that follow button. Keeps us going around here. Thank you for the subs, resubs, donations galore. Thank you, guys. Love your faces. We will see you on Friday.
Hey,
Adios.
somebody likes us.